We're just waiting a couple minutes, everyone. We'll be starting soon. Okay, good morning. Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue à l'espace 4. Welcome to Concordia's fourth space, une installation de l'Université Concordia. Et merci de vous joindre à nous aujourd'hui pour l'événement Empowering Insights, Bridging Black Entrepreneurship and Research. L'événement est diffusé en direct de l'espace 4 et situé en territoire autochtone non cédé. To help situate you, we are streaming to YouTube, we are live from Fourth Space, and we are located in unceded Indigenous lands in Chichage, Montréal. À l'Espace 4, nous travaillons avec la communauté universitaire pour favoriser la mobilisation de savoir. In Fourth Space, we work with our university community to help mobilize knowledge by co-creating daily activities. Et la rencontre aujourd'hui est une conversation en direct. Vous pouvez donc soumettre vos questions et vos commentaires par clavardage. We are running this event as a live stream Zoom meeting. We welcome comments, questions via the chat if you're joining us by Zoom. Et pour les personnes qui sont dans la salle, si vous souhaitez participer, il suffit de lever la main et nous vous fournirons un micro. Those of you in the space, if you'd like to participate, just let us know. Raise your hand, we'll get a microphone over to you. With that, it's my pleasure to hand it over to the Quebec coordinator and our moderator for today, Martha Nduayo. Welcome, Martha.
Thank you so much. I thought you said the cute Beck presenter. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for making the time to be here today. As Doug said, my name is Martha Nduwayo and I am the coordinator for the Quebec Black Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub. Donc c'est le carrefour d'entrepreneuriat noir. C'est un programme au gouvernement fédéral et je suis la coordinatrice pour le carrefour au Québec. So first things first, I'll just explain a little bit how today is going to be going. I will be giving a brief explanation of the program, so what is the Black Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub, and then we will be getting to know our panelists today and the research projects that they're working on. After that, we'll have a Q&A session with the audience, and that will be it. So before we begin, I also just wanted to mention that feel free to grab some food on the side. And like Doug said, this is going to be live. So if you are not comfortable with pictures or being recorded, let us know. We have stickers that you can put on yourself to make sure that you're comfortable with being recorded and captured. All right, with that being said, let's begin. So the Black Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub, c'est un programme au gouvernement fédéral. On est dans la 4e et dernière année pour le mandat. Et puis, dans le fond, le but, c'est de créer plus de ressources pour les entrepreneurs noirs. Et le carrefour spécifiquement, c'est 1/3 du programme. Donc, on a le premier volet où est-ce qu'on offre des prêts avec la coalition FACE. Le deuxième, c'est le côté de écosystème. Donc, on a des organismes à but non lucratif qui encouragent les entreprises et les entrepreneurs noirs. Par exemple, Esther Black Youth Network, on a aussi Orijin Village et il y a plusieurs autres qui font partie du deuxième stream. Et puis, le troisième volet, c'est vraiment le carrefour de recherche, donc le Knowledge Hub. Et dans chaque province, on a un hub. Donc, moi, je fais partie du carrefour au Québec. Et puis, il y a plusieurs programmes de recherche qui sont financés par le gouvernement fédéral à travers les institutions académiques et les organismes à but non lucratif. Donc, aujourd'hui, je voulais qu'on discute des projets qui se trouvent à l'extérieur du carrefour. Comme ça, on peut savoir un peu ce qui se passe autour et puis avoir un peu plus d'intérêt à participer aux projets de recherche et aux initiatives du carrefour. All right. So, je vais commencer par présenter les panélistes que nous avons aujourd'hui. Donc, on va commencer par Dave. So, Dave McKenzie, he is the founder and coordinator of the Community Service Initiative, CSI, which is at the John Molson School of Business. He has over 30 years of experience in non-for-profit, governance and management, entrepreneurship, and small business management. He's a servant leader whose positive attitude and tireless energy encouraging others to succeed are infectious. Next, we have Cassandra Kernissan. So Cassandra brings over 15 years of corporate entrepreneurial and non-for-profit experience with a strong passion to uplift her community and see it thrive. She holds an MBA at HEC Montréal and a Bachelor's of Commerce from McGill University. She has experience in corporate marketing, business management, entrepreneurship, and community leadership. Cassandra is also a certified naturopath and holistic health coach who's been working with the wellness field for over a decade to promote health empowerment among marginalized groups. So right now, Cassandra is the executive director at DESTA Black Community Network, a charitable organization that offers access to a hub of services and partnership that empowers the Black Anglophone community in Montreal. Thank you, Cassandra. Ensuite, nous avons Karen. Donc, Karen est professeure au département de management à l'École des sciences de la gestion, ESG, de l'UQAM. Ses travaux portent sur l'innovation collaborative au sein des PME du Québec. En particulier, elle s'intéresse aux collaborations entre innovations dans un contexte nord-sud, en mettant l'accent sur les complexités interculturelles associées à de telles collaborations. Ses travaux portent également sur les pratiques d'innovation collaborative des entrepreneurs immigrants au Québec ainsi que les nouvelles possibilités offertes par des technologies émergentes comme le blockchain au sein de différents écosystèmes et contextes. Ensuite, nous avons Esther. Donc, Esther Youte is a force to be reckoned with in the business world, the living, breathing definition of expertise in management and human resources. Esther is the CEO and co-founder of Orijin Village. She's a fierce advocate for Black entrepreneurs in Canada, sparking change through the Unite Prosper platform, services, and events. We also have the co-founder of Orijin Village who is in the audience with us today. All right. So we are going to begin the first part of the panel conversation where we get to learn a little bit more about the research projects that you're working on and the initiatives with the community. So the first project that I'll start with is the one with Cassandra and Dave. So would you please explain to us a little bit what are you working on and how did this partnership come about with your two organizations?
She's already different. Anyways, so hi everyone. Thank you all for this opportunity, Martha and your team. To answer your question, DESTA, Black Youth Network, is an ecosystem partner in a Black entrepreneurship project that was initiated by the federal government several years ago. The project has 3 buckets. One bucket was the establishment of the Federation of African Canadian Economics, or FACE, where an organization dedicated to manage a loan fund for Black community entrepreneurs. Another bucket was creating this set of ecosystem partners who are supposed to provide supports to Black entrepreneurs. And the third bucket is what Martha is dealing with, which is the Black Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub, which is managed by Carleton University and who's supposed to be creating this knowledge hub ecosystem to a sort of repository for the research and stuff that's being conducted on Black entrepreneurship. As the founder of CSI, I'm pretty much involved in all 3 buckets, but for today, and more specifically to answer the question about the partnership, is that as ecosystem partners, DESTA approached me through CSI about providing training for entrepreneurs. And we had worked together before on training, and for not only just on Black community entrepreneurs, we had several projects running previously. Because on the CSI, one of the things we wanted to do was take the school out of the building and go directly into communities and work with communities who especially wouldn't have that opportunity. And the idea was to get in there and find people with the entrepreneurial spirit and show them how to set up and run a business. Because I can let you guys in on a little secret. We teach a bunch of entrepreneurship courses, but most of the people who are taking entrepreneurship courses don't go on to set up any business. I mean, that's just the reality. The businesses are coming from people who never even went to school, and and who just have that entrepreneurial spirit. And we could talk about some of that later, but the DESTA, like I said, approached me, and also another organization, Côte-des-Neiges Black Community Association, approached me with the same thing. And I said, and we were supposed to be looking at the English-speaking Black community, and I suggested that instead of trying to do 2 programs, that DESTA and Côte-des-Neiges, merge their efforts and work together, and because they're pulling from the same pool of people. So what DESTA and Côte-des-Neiges is doing right now is that they find the people, and then we develop the training program and actually conduct the training program. So CSI is conducting a program in business readiness training, or a business boot camp, where we're working with people who started their business. They're probably in there about a year or less, and they just kind of jumped into it. But now they want to really establish a proper legal structure, understand what they need to do, and we're helping them to develop a roadmap in terms of a business plan, so that they not only, and people say, well, you develop the plan because you need financing and all that, but for me, the plan is more for yourself first, for you to figure out what exactly it is you're doing. Because a lot of times people have, you have these ideas that sound good in your head, but when you put it down on paper, it's a whole other thing. So we're trying to work with them doing that. We also have an option for people who have been in business and who just want some specific help, where we could customize some training for them. We're doing that. And then there's also folk who've applied for FACE loans and who were unsuccessful for whatever reason. We're going to figure out how we could help them to get back on track to do that. So that was the genesis of the partnership. I'll just turn it over to Cassandra, so if I left out anything.
Thank you, Dave. So yeah, we've been working with Dave for several years now, since about the time that I started with Desta. But Dave has a very long history with Desta and with the community. Through his programming, so basically the Business Bootcamp is a 12-week program that will take an entrepreneur at any stage that they're at. So whether it's an idea, whether they've been in operation for 1 year, 5 years, we'll take them and push them to the next level. And Dave is amazing at that. We call it bootcamp because it really is, it's a process that pushes people. And Dave has a great mix of experience, passion, as well as, I would say, a standard of excellence in which he's going to push the participants, sometimes out of their comfort zone far enough to be like, okay, this isn't for me, but he pushes them. And that's really what I think many of the programs that I've seen, we don't really see that. We don't see that level of dedication, that level of attention. And so it's been a very successful program. In addition to that, Desta offers individualized coaching for entrepreneurs, again, at any stage of their development. We also offer one-off workshops, time management, financial literacy. We offer, we have a partnership also with an organization called Reboot X, which works on different modules, so marketing, financing, giving aspects that are very important for someone starting a business that, may be a little bit more accessible to somebody starting out. So we have that as well. And then in addition, DESA as an organization, we do work from a holistic perspective. So the importance of wellness, the importance of, offering other supports to this specific community, I think is something that can't be overlooked, because we do face specific challenges that other communities don't face. And just to highlight, we work with the Black English-speaking community in Montreal. So this is a double minority group. There are an additional set of barriers to doing business, doing any type of activity here in Montreal or in Quebec. And so, in a nutshell, what DESTA works towards is really helping our participants to overcome social, economic, as well as personal barriers to success. So,
thank you. We can go to Karen. Donc, Karen, tu m'as parlé un peu d'un projet de recherche que tu faisais avec Startup. Est-ce que tu peux nous parler un peu plus de qu'est-ce que c'est ce projet de recherche? Et puis, je sais que dans le titre, il y avait le terme innovation ouverte. What is that?
Bonjour à tout le monde et merci Martha pour l'invitation à cet bel événement. Alors, avec Startup, actuellement, on travaille sur un projet de recherche qui porte sur le réseautage. Déjà, Startup, c'est un incubateur en fait qui est spécialisé dans l'accompagnement en fait des communautés féminines immigrantes issues de la diversité ethnoculturelle au Québec. Et c'est ça, en fait, ils se sont rendus compte que lorsque les communautés immigrantes arrivent au Québec, il y a certaines difficultés, en fait, pour se bâtir un réseau qui soit véritablement profond, en fait, qui est avec lesquels on a un lien pour permettre de développer par la suite l'activité entrepreneuriale. Donc, c'est comme ça, en fait, que le projet de recherche est parti. Et l'objectif, c'est véritablement, en fait, de comprendre déjà les besoins en matière de réseautage de ces femmes-là issues de la diversité ethnoculturelle lorsqu'elles arrivent à Montréal. Donc, c'est quoi leurs besoins? C'est quoi les défis aussi qu'elles rencontrent dans la construction de leur réseau? Quels sont les obstacles, etc. Donc là, on est en train de travailler là-dessus et l'idée aussi, c'est de voir comment Startup, le fait d'appartenir à un incubateur comme ça qui est spécialisé dans l'accompagnement des femmes qui sont issues de l'immigration, issues de la diversité, comment appartenir à un tel espace, un tel réseau finalement d'entrepreneurs, les aide aussi à se bâtir une identité, à la fois une identité professionnelle au Québec, mais aussi une identité personnelle, même sur le plan identitaire, sur le plan très, très personnel, comment ça les aide à s'ancrer profondément dans leur pays d'accueil, dans leur région d'accueil. Et donc, c'est ces deux aspects-là, donc à la fois les besoins de réseautage de ces femmes-là, les défis qu'elles rencontrent, mais aussi comment l'appartenance à un incubateur comme ça les aide au quotidien pour se développer personnellement et également développer leur activité entrepreneuriale. Donc, c'est un peu ça. Et pour faire le lien avec la notion d'innovation ouverte, donc moi, j'ai fait ma thèse, en fait, sur ce concept-là d'innovation ouverte qui encourage en fait l'innovation en collaboration. Donc dire ouvert, c'est vraiment dire comment on ouvre les frontières de l'entreprise pour aller voir un peu à l'externe qu'est-ce qui se fait ailleurs, quelles sont les connaissances en fait qui sont générées au travers des universités, au travers d'autres partenaires externes et comment qu'on peut bénéficier de ces connaissances-là pour nous permettre de développer. Et la première étape, en fait, pour innover de façon collaborative, c'est déjà avoir un réseau qui est solide, en fait. Donc, c'est le lien qu'on a fait dans ce projet de recherche-là. Donc, comment à la fois développer un réseau qui va au-delà de simples contacts sur ligne qu'on va prendre ou bien des informations ici et là qu'on va pouvoir prendre, mais qui restent généralement très superficielles. Donc, comment aller au-delà de cette superficialité-là pour avoir un réseau qui est véritablement profond et avec lequel la confiance va s'établir pour nous permettre justement à la fin de développer des projets en collaboration avec les partenaires du réseau qu'on aura. Donc, voilà un peu le projet et le lien avec l'innovation ouverte.
Merci beaucoup. OK, on va passer à Esther. Je sais que ton partenaire n'est pas encore présent, mais pour commencer, est-ce que tu peux nous expliquer un peu qu'est-ce que Orijin Village fait? Et puis ensuite, on va pouvoir aller un peu plus dans la recherche.
Donc, bonjour à tous. J'aimerais tout d'abord remercier l'organisation de m'avoir invité pour pouvoir parler d'Orijin Village dans le cadre de la recherche que l'on fait avec l'Université de Concordia. En fait, Orijin Village est une organisation à but non lucratif qui travaille spécifiquement avec les entrepreneurs noirs dans le cadre de leur transformation numérique. Et pour nous, ce qui est important, c'est de pouvoir aider les entrepreneurs à pouvoir intégrer les technologies dans leur entreprise. Ceci étant dit, Orijin Village est une jeune organisation qui a débuté en fin 2019, où on est parti du constat que les entrepreneurs noirs avaient de la difficulté à intégrer la technologie dans leur entreprise, mais aussi d'y avoir accès. Nous sommes 4 fondateurs et on s'est posé la question, comment on peut mieux aider les entrepreneurs sur cette question? Donc, on a bâti l'organisation ensemble et quelques mois plus tard, on a eu la COVID. Et de la COVID, on a eu des constats. On a eu des entrepreneurs qui ont dû fermer leurs portes parce qu'ils n'ont pas pu migrer leur entreprise pour pouvoir desservir de façon, disons, en ligne ou de façon plus polyvalente. Ceci étant dit, puisqu'on avait déjà commencé ce projet d'avoir une application en ligne pour regrouper le maximum d'entreprises noires sur une application, pour que ce soit disponible non seulement pour les communautés noires, mais aussi pour les alliés. Nous avons continué ce projet-là et donc on a eu George Floyd. Je pense que vous vous souvenez tous de cet événement-là. Et c'est dans cet engouement, dans cet élan qu'on a pu regrouper au départ 250 entreprises de Montréal. Et par la suite, on a fait notre chemin, on a pu bâtir un réseau. Et c'est un peu plus tard dans cette année-là qu'on a fait un focus group. Parce que la force d'Origine Village, c'est vraiment le grassroots. Donc, ce qu'on a fait des cellules d'entreprise pour pouvoir recenser, pour être aidé au niveau de l'entrepreneuriat et tout ce qui a rapport à la transformation numérique, qu'est-ce qu'il faut considérer. Et donc, on a vu comme constat que moins de 41% des entrepreneurs avaient un site Internet fonctionnel ou même opérationnel qui pouvait être utilisé pour faire du e-commerce. Par la suite, on a remarqué qu'il y avait des lacunes profondes, mais c'est à cause de l'accès à la technologie. Donc, sur ce, on a développé nos programmes qui sont vraiment basés sur l'accompagnement des entreprises, plus des entreprises noires. Mais cet accompagnement-là est vraiment, oui, ponctuel, mais il est basé sur la capacité d'intégrer les technologies et d'aborder la transformation numérique. Ces entreprises-là, désolé, sont précisément en début de démarrage ou plutôt au niveau de la croissance. Donc, ce n'est pas du pré-démarrage que l'on fait en termes de services. Ceci étant dit, quelques années plus tard, nous avons desservi plus de 1500 entrepreneurs à ce jour. En fait, on a quand même des défis au niveau de colliger nos données, ce qui est en train de se faire avec Concordia dans l'interprétation des données, parce qu'en fait, dans cet élan d'implication, on a dû aller vite. En tant qu'organisation, on est 7 employés, donc ça va vite. Ceci étant dit, jusqu'à maintenant, on développe nos outils. Donc, on a notre directeur de technologie qui est présentement dans la salle, Williamson Dulcie. On développe nos applications. Non, c'est pas lui, c'est lui derrière.
C'est l'autre personne.
Exactement. Et en fait, on développe nos technologies à l'interne pour pouvoir mieux interpréter nos données parce qu'on a pu collecter beaucoup de données à travers les années. On est très fiers du travail qui se fait. Et donc, voilà.
Merci beaucoup. OK, parfait. Je vais revenir à Dave and Cassandra. I wanted to know, because Cassandra was explaining how there is unique challenges that Black entrepreneurs are facing, and the bootcamp is helping with that. So can you talk a little bit more about what are the unique aspects that are like personalized in the training that the bootcamp with CSI has been providing to the entrepreneurs working?
Sure. Well, I could talk about like the challenges and the barriers, and then I can pass it on to Dave to go into more detail in the programming itself. So, I mean, what we've seen, I think one of the biggest barriers for the Black community, and then, you know, Black English-speaking community, which is a very small community here in Montreal, is, you know, the access to networks that's so important to becoming a successful entrepreneur, because you can have a great idea, you can have, you know, the drive, the motivation, but without the networks to help build or give you access to resources, to the right people, it becomes very difficult to go from, you know, to accelerate or to elevate within entrepreneurship. So I think that's a big one. access to financing, I think, is difficult for any community, but specifically the Black English-speaking community. I think, when we talk about not having a level playing field, that's one of the areas where, economically we've always been disadvantaged because of the history of systemic racism, which is mainly an economic phenomena. Mm-hmm. So that's a big one. I think also, having people project themselves into a vision of success is also difficult. What we've seen with the young participants from the community, just not having the exposure to examples of success. Mentors. So mentorship is a big, very, very important aspect, I think, and having a mentor that is from your community. I think it always helps because it shows what's possible. There's also an understanding of what we're living, the challenges we're facing. So that's also something that we look to build within our programming, always looking to, oftentimes we'll have participants who've completed the programming come back and mentor other participants. So I'll let Dave speak about some other aspects.
So Cassandra talked about some of the, I would say, some of the ones that we kind of all know, right? Mm-hmm. Those are the ones that you always hear getting talked about. But I like to just reflect a little bit on some of the ones we don't usually talk about. And it starts with the actual person, because entrepreneurship is not for everybody, And it starts with a certain honesty, And sometimes people need somebody to have that conversation with them, because sometimes it's hard for them to have it with themselves. That there's no shame in working for somebody else. We need, Black lawyers and doctors and professors and all of that stuff too, But there's a certain, to be this entrepreneur and to be a business person, especially in Canada, is a hard thing. Because unlike some of the other places in the world, even the US, to set up and run a business here, just the bureaucracy alone is tough. So even though you have the great entrepreneurial spirit and you have all the different things, it's still rough. And that's even without the racism and all the other things, right? That's just you getting up and starting and saying, I need to do this, I'll give you a quick example. Like most of the major cities in the world, you would see people selling stuff on the side of the street. Most of the people are coming from places where you see a need, you go out and you fill it. Rain is falling, you go to the dollar store, you buy 20 umbrellas and you stand there and you sell them, right? You don't see that here. You don't see people selling food and stuff on the side of the street. In order to have a food truck here, you have to have a restaurant, because they need to be able to find you so that you could pay taxes. You want to play in the metro, you have to be registered, right? The thing is controlled. So, you have to understand how to navigate that system before you could even start dealing with some of the other things. And to me, those are some of the barriers before you even get out there to face the ones that are out there, is the ones inside, So that's why when I participate in programs like this, I spend the first few classes on preferences and motivation and stuff. Who are you? How do you want to be perceived? Where do you want to be in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? Why do you want to set up and run a business? People say, why you want to know? What's that? I have this idea. No. But to me, if you haven't thought about some of those things, you're going to have trouble down the road. I don't know. I don't care what program they tell you, right? You say you don't know who you are. You don't know how you want to be perceived, right? You don't know why you say, well, I was doing this because my friend told me I could make money. Like, it's not a reason that, that's a recipe for success down the road, You have any knowledge about this thing that you want to do? No. But somebody in New York is doing it. Well, New York is not Montreal, right? So to me, it starts there, That's one. And then two, even within families, and I'm speaking about Anglophone specifically, it's not something that families are encouraging their kids to do. They said you go to school, you get your degree and stuff, and you do, right? So it's not something that they identified that said this is something that you should be pursuing. So a lot of times people are doing side hustles. So they have this business, they're working, for somewhere they're working at the hospital or something like that, and then they're doing this side hustle. And I always get into trouble when I say the boot camp is not about side hustles. It's about creating legitimate businesses with a legitimate legal structure where you have something that you are satisfying a need in the marketplace, right? And you're coming out there and you're saying, I have what it takes to do this. And we're providing you with all the supports to get you out there competing and doing something that you're proud of and that the whole community is proud of, right? And that's different. Some people have this idea in their head, they want to set up a for-profit business, but they have a not-for-profit mentality. You know, and that have nothing to do with racism or anything, that's just you. You know, a not-for-profit is not a for-profit business. It's not the same thing, it's two different structures. And you say, well, you know, I can't do that, or I can't charge that because, you know, it's too much. You know, you haven't done the research to see what the market is going to pay for that. You decide, you know, and to me, that's where I see the bigger problems, is that initial thing, like getting these people started and clearing some of those myths that they have. And once you clear those, they feel so empowered that the racism and all the other stuff, they're ready to take that on. Because they're so empowered now, they say, yeah, we know, we have the knowledge, we could do this. But most of the programs are starting from trying to fix those things without understanding, and the people don't even know themselves. They don't even know why they're doing it. Like I said, they either have the side hustle mentality, right? And the danger with the side hustle is that you never do, you have these two things and you're not doing any of them well. Because in your day job, because you have the side hustle, you're not advancing in the day job because you have to keep enough hours to do the side hustle. And the side hustle, you can't really blow it up into a big business because you have a thing. So to me, you can't be a little pregnant. It's either you're pregnant or you're not, right? I'm not trying to be thinking to the woman in the room. Yes, you know, but that's how I learn. I mean, I've never been pregnant, but I've told that you can't be a little. It's either or, right? So that's some of the things that I like to focus on before we get into the rest of it.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. So in order to solve racism and to know if we're pregnant or not, we can just sign up to your boot camp. Okay. Yeah. It's clear, very clear. Perfect. Karen, je voulais savoir, dans ton projet, je sais que c'est encore en cours, la recherche, mais est-ce qu'il y a des différences que tu remarques entre... Hold on. J'ai déjà perdu ma question. This is because of you, Dave. I don't know where I wrote it. It's always a man's fault. Okay. Please excuse me. Oh, j'ai trouvé. OK. Est-ce que tu vois qu'il y a des différences significatives dans les approches de réseautage entre les femmes entrepreneurs et leurs homologues masculins?
Je vais d'abord revenir un peu sur ce qui a été dit précédemment parce que c'était vraiment intéressant. Déjà, effectivement, je suis totalement d'accord avec Cassandra sur l'importance du réseautage parce que c'est ce qu'on a remarqué et c'est en fait là d'où c'est l'origine en fait de notre projet de recherche qu'on a mis en place. C'est vraiment l'importance. Enfin, on se rend compte à quel point connaître les bonnes personnes est important en fait pour le développement de l'entreprise et ces femmes entrepreneurs-là, immigrantes, avec qui il y a une contrainte majeure en fait qu'elles ont rencontrée dans leur parcours, à tel point qu'il y en a plusieurs qui ont dû renoncer complètement au projet entrepreneurial, effectivement, parce que elles avaient l'impression que toutes les portes étaient fermées, mais c'est souvent parce qu'elles ne cognaient pas, par exemple, à la bonne porte pour postuler au bon programme gouvernemental, pour avoir le bon programme de financement, pour avoir le bon accompagnement pour solliciter les services que ces incubateurs leur proposent. Donc, c'est super important. Je voulais renchérir là-dessus sur le réseautage. Et aussi ce que Dave disait sur le fait de se connaître soi-même déjà en tant qu'entrepreneur. Est-ce qu'on a véritablement, est-ce qu'on veut aller là-dedans et pour quelles raisons on veut aller là-dedans. Lorsqu'on discute beaucoup avec les étudiants, on a l'impression que l'idée de l'entrepreneur qu'ils ont, c'est Elon Musk, les entrepreneurs à succès. Et donc, oui, je veux ressembler à cet entrepreneur-là, je veux avoir autant de succès, sans savoir que pour arriver là, c'est beaucoup d'échecs, tous les parcours en fait que ces entrepreneurs à succès traversent, on ne les visibilise pas suffisamment. Et je voulais mettre l'accent sur la perspective d'échec aussi en entrepreneuriat. On a toujours l'impression que oui, à partir du moment où je vais monter mon entreprise, c'est bon, tout va bien aller, je vais avoir l'accompagnement nécessaire et ça va être un succès, mais on ne visibilise pas suffisamment, j'ai l'impression, les cas d'échec en fait pour voir qu'est-ce que ces échecs-là en fait ont créé en fait comme nouvelles opportunités pour permettre à l'entrepreneur d'évoluer. Et j'ai également l'impression que si on documentait un peu plus et si on rendait un peu plus visible ces expériences d'échecs là, ça peut aider éventuellement à changer l'image en fait qu'on a vis-à-vis de l'entrepreneuriat. Et pour répondre à ta question sur les différences, c'est ça, de réseautage entre les femmes et les hommes, c'est ça?
Oui, s'il y avait des différences dans les approches de réseautage.
Dans les approches de réseautage. Alors, oui, on n'est pas encore arrivé à la fin de l'étude, donc on n'a pas encore de réponse claire pour le projet sur lequel on travaille, mais dans la recherche, de façon générale, oui, on voit qu'il y a des différences en matière de réseautage entre les hommes et les femmes, mais c'est sûr que je vais donner d'abord les différences qu'il y a dans la recherche. Donc, les femmes, on a souvent l'impression que lorsqu'elles vont à une activité de réseautage, ce sont les recherches qui le disent, c'est vraiment plus l'aspect relationnel aussi qu'elles vont mettre de l'avant, au-delà d'opportunités entrepreneuriales, d'avoir les bons contacts pour accéder au bon financement, pour accéder au bon accompagnement, pour développer l'entreprise. Les recherches mettent de l'avant que elles vont déjà parfois pour se divertir, pour rencontrer de nouvelles personnes, pour sortir de leur quotidien. Donc il y a tout un aspect relationnel aussi qui rentre en jeu lorsqu'elles réseautent et qui motivent en fait leur participation à de telles activités versus au niveau des hommes qui sont très fixés en fait sur l'objectif. Ok, là je viens dans une activité de réseautage, c'est pour avoir tel nombre de contacts, telle carte d'affaires parce que j'ai vu qu'il y avait tel panéliste et je vais le rencontrer parce qu'il va m'aider à développer ou avancer dans le cadre de tel projet. Donc il y a cette différenciation là, mais c'est sûr que je suis pas trop dans une approche de distinguer en fait entre les hommes, comment les hommes réseautent, comment les femmes réseautent, parce que ça contribue en fait à accroître les stéréotypes qu'on a sur les femmes versus les hommes en entrepreneuriat. Donc j'ai une collègue notamment qui travaille beaucoup sur toutes les questions de réseautage et les questions de femmes, et elle est également dans cette perspective-là de dire que ça dépend vraiment du contexte en fait, ça dépend de l'activité que la personne veut mener, ça dépend du domaine dans lequel elle est, et en fonction du domaine, on a des recherches aussi qui vont montrer que parfois en fonction du secteur d'activité, on va avoir des femmes aussi qui sont très focus sur l'objectif et qui adoptent une approche de réseautage très superficielle, donc pour avoir le maximum d'informations, même si le lien qu'on a avec une personne n'est pas suffisamment profond, parce qu'elles sont dans un secteur où c'est comme ça que ça fonctionne, et donc elles suivent le mouvement. Et on a d'autres secteurs aussi où il faut absolument avoir une approche relationnelle avec avec la personne qu'on a en face dans le secteur des services notamment, où il y a beaucoup de liens finalement entre le fournisseur de services et le client. Donc, on va avoir des approches un peu plus rationnelles. Donc, il n'y a pas de profil type de façon de réseauter en fonction du genre ou en fonction du sexe. C'est vraiment, ça dépend de beaucoup de paramètres. Et voilà, donc je vais m'arrêter là.
D'accord. Tantôt, tu as mentionné la documentation et la discussion de l'échec. Je trouve que c'est très intéressant. D'ailleurs, il y a quelqu'un dans l'audience, Carando Morette, qui fait partie du podcast Black Ink Podcast. Et puis, on va travailler sur ça, en fait. On voudrait avoir une série d'épisodes où est-ce qu'on discute entre les entrepreneurs et les chercheurs sur les échecs et leur expérience. Et qu'est-ce que ça amène. Donc, je trouve que c'est intéressant que tu aies amené ce sujet. OK. Esther, how are you feeling? All right. So I wanted to ask you about the research project that you're doing with Suchit and Concordia. So you talked already about the goal of Orijin Village and what you've been working on, surtout avec la pandémie. I wanted to know, if I can find my question. Let's see. Okay. So how can digital technologies address the challenges faced by Black entrepreneurs in Montreal? Cassandra talked about, and Dave, about the unique challenges that Black entrepreneurs are facing. And then you mentioned, the challenge that comes with the situation of COVID-19. So I wanted to know, what are the specific digital technologies that are helping Black entrepreneurs in the context of the research project that you're doing? So si tu veux, tu peux parler un peu de la recherche, puis ensuite répondre un peu à la question.
Super. Donc, on a commencé la recherche. En fait, la recherche, c'est la digitalisation des...
Tu peux parler plus proche.
Oui, plus proche, désolé. En fait, le sujet de la recherche, c'est la digitalisation des entreprises dirigées par des Noirs à Montréal. Mais littéralement, c'est une recherche qu'on pourrait vraiment appliquer pour tout le Canada parce que les profils sont vraiment semblables. Ceci étant dit, la recherche qu'on est en train de poursuivre et qui finit l'année prochaine est vraiment pour regarder l'écart que les entrepreneurs noirs ont au niveau de l'accès au niveau des technologies et comment les technologies les aident à pouvoir bridge the gap, if I can put it this way, par rapport à la concurrence qu'ils peuvent faire à d'autres entreprises dirigées par d'autres personnes canadiennes. Ceci étant dit, nous poursuivons, nous avons un tas de données qu'on est en train de collecter et d'analyser. Et ce qu'on a pu voir avec le travail d'Orijin, on voit qu'il y a une meilleure sensibilisation, mais connaissance, parce qu'on offre aussi des formations pour les entrepreneurs noirs, comment explorer différentes technologies qui peuvent les aider au niveau du développement de leur entreprise. Puis on s'entend que quand on parle de transformation numérique, on ne parle pas seulement de site web. Et je tiens à le mentionner parce que oui, la visibilité en ligne est un aspect, mais aussi il y a tout ce qui est l'automatisation, il y a les méthodes de travail, il y a un paquet d'éléments qui peuvent tenir recours ou avoir recours à la technologie. Donc, dans cette perspective, ce qu'on a pu voir aussi à travers la recherche et à travers aussi même le travail d'Orijin Village, c'est que les communautés noires, en général, faisaient beaucoup à faire tout ce qui avait la bouche à oreille, de se tenir à la communauté immédiate pour pouvoir faire des affaires. Tandis que la technologie, la transformation numérique ouvre les portes, ouvre les horizons. Ceci étant dit, c'est ce qu'on est en train d'évaluer avec l'équipe, avec Suchit qui devrait arriver sous peu. Malheureusement, c'est moi qui parle de la recherche. Mais aujourd'hui, peux-tu me répéter la deuxième partie de la question?
How can digital technologies specifically address the challenges faced by Black entrepreneurs in Montreal?
Oui. En fait, le premier élément, je dirais, c'est la concurrence. C'est de pouvoir concurrencer avec les autres entreprises qui ont accès à la technologie pour pouvoir aller rejoindre plus de clients et diversifier leurs offres de services. C'est aussi de pouvoir les aider au niveau opérationnel. Parce qu'au niveau de la technologie, même si ça ne remplace pas une ressource humaine, mais ça peut aider à réaliser des tâches au niveau des finances, au niveau des opérations. On est tous dans une société où la pénurie de main-d'œuvre nous bat à plein fouet. Et pour une entreprise dirigée par les Noirs qui est en temps normal plus petite que les autres entreprises, il est important d'avoir les bons mécanismes et les bonnes, je pourrais dire, les bons outils pour pouvoir pallier à ce manque. Ceci étant dit, pour la visibilité, qui a toujours été un enjeu pour les entreprises noires, de ne pas pouvoir avoir accès aux médias traditionnels qui sont beaucoup plus chers, mais de pouvoir, je vais utiliser le mot anglais, leverage les médias en ligne pour pouvoir se faire voir et pour pouvoir accéder à des communautés, à des clients que de temps normal, ce ne serait pas possible. Donc, c'est une plus-value très recherchée. Aussi, je pourrais dire, et je vais rentrer dans un autre élément qui, avant la COVID, c'était une question de visibilité. Et maintenant, après COVID, c'est une question de AI. Le AI joue une place importante qui réduit le temps de travail sur certains éléments. Donc, exemple, développer du matériel blog pour pouvoir augmenter la visibilité. Donc, on a ChatGPT, il y en a plein d'autres qui s'inscrivent maintenant dans les différents outils que l'on utilise, que ce soit financiers ou opérationnels. Ça devient de plus en plus important de pouvoir maîtriser ces outils et de pouvoir évoluer aussi avec ces outils parce qu'ils évoluent vite et l'entrepreneuriat et ces technologies vont de pair. Donc, voilà.
Okay, merci. Just like that, Dave and Cassandra, do you address AI in terms of like support in the bootcamp program or digital technologies?
Well, it's just interesting to hear, because for me, it's embracing the digital age is one way to get around racism. Because you could be doing stuff here, the person doesn't know who you are, doesn't know what you look like, So depending on the kind of business that you're doing, you could have that great account with that other business and you're doing stuff back and forth. And unless you end up in a Zoom meeting or something where they actually see you, so it's just one way. But for us, to bring it more closely to the actual program, it's about how you could use the tools to cut your costs, right? So you could use those digital tools to set up certain structures, right? You use the certain software and that to help you with certain, some of those tasks that are kind of redundant. Like you could set up, like your financial statements, your cash flow forecasts and stuff, and we're teaching people how to do those things, how to read the statement, like what goes into it. So when you learn how to do that, you're not just saying, or my accountant, you just throw the thing for this accountant who charges you all this money and you don't know the difference between a balance sheet and an income statement and that. So we're walking them through not only what these things look like, but how do you build them? What goes into it? Mm-hmm. So by the time you got that knowledge, and I have several of our participants have said, the next time they meet with the accountant, it's going to be a different meeting. Because now they're armed with that knowledge and they could ask certain questions. Mm-hmm. And there's lots of different software that's even free that you could use to help you in that sense. So that's more of our focus. And like, how can you use that software to reduce your costs or to improve your communication, right? With not only the suppliers or other partners, or even in the course itself, people are setting up like WhatsApp groups and stuff where they could communicate with each other and stuff. So it's improving communication, reducing cost, and like I said, in a way too, you could help to get around certain racism because the person doesn't have to see you in terms of what you do. You're designing a website or something for somebody. You know, you could get a lot of things done without having to have that personal interaction. So it does come in, it does play a role. Mm-hmm. And there's also a lot of free online stuff that I'm learning too about these free online things that you could use to make your life a little bit easier. Yeah, mm-hmm. So we're exploring those.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just add, AI, ChatGPT is really a game changer. I know there's still controversy around it, and I understand where that comes from. But, when I started my entrepreneurial journey, if those tools existed, the amount of time that I would have saved, because oftentimes when you're starting out, you're starting out on your own, right? So you have to wear many different hats. So just something like marketing, content creation, which at the time I was doing all on my own. Now ChatGPT can do it within like not even minutes, seconds, and much better because it's pulling literally the collective consciousness of people. And you can't do that with thousands of dollars of market research. You can't do that. So I think, as controversial as it is, we have to be realistic about just being able to remain competitive in an environment like this. I think you do need to adopt a certain level of that technology. And I think, it is definitely beneficial specifically for entrepreneurs who have to just juggle a lot of different things. Yeah. I do see definitely value in that.
Okay, excellent. Oui, vas-y.
J'irais dans le même sens, mais qu'on le veuille ou non, tout ce qui est AI maintenant, it's here to stay. C'est pas quelque chose qui va disparaître. Il faut composer avec et ça va vite. Donc il faut créer des segments, des programmes ou des formations pour pouvoir aider nos entrepreneurs à intégrer. Parce que la vérité, c'est que les communautés noires sont un peu plus loin des technologies que les autres communautés. Et ça demeure une réalité à cause de l'accès. Parce que oui, c'est vrai qu'il y a beaucoup d'éléments gratuits, mais à un moment donné, si tu veux profiter du plein potentiel de l'outil, il faut payer. Et donc, c'est là que ça peut commencer à s'additionner et à être un peu cher. Ceci étant dit, j'aimerais appeler à la cybersécurité. C'est quelque chose de très important. Maintenant, tout est possible avec le AI. Et il y a aussi beaucoup de personnes qui se sont fait copier. Donc, il y a aussi ce genre de connaissances qui doit être partagées aussi avec nos entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. Voilà.
Excellent. All right. So there's a lot of, this program is about Black entrepreneurship, and the entrepreneurship life is, like you talked about side hustle, it's like the hustle, it's a lot of independent work, a lot of work on top of the basics to pay your bills. And then research, on the other hand, is very intellectual, it's very academic, numbers, I'm thinking of spreadsheets and, and it also takes time. Research takes a lot of time. And then the entrepreneur is thinking time is money. So how do you, like, if, I'm so sorry. Okay, so how can you inspire or kind of showcase the importance of research to Black entrepreneurs so that they can actively participate in research, innovation, and collaboration? How do you make research sexy for entrepreneurs? Is the question. Oui, vas-y.
J'ai le micro,
Prends
donc
la
je vais
parole.
commencer. Alors, comment rend sexy l'entrepreneur, la recherche pour les entrepreneurs? Je pense que je vais aller avec, il y a plusieurs éléments qui viennent dans ma tête, mais déjà avec la diffusion en fait des résultats, la façon dont on vulgarise en fait les résultats de recherche. Je pense que c'est super important et c'est un enjeu majeur aussi au niveau des universités, comment on sort de juste la perspective article académique, conférences académiques où il y a personne du milieu pratique dans ces conférences-là pour pouvoir avoir des formats de diffusion qui soient un peu plus adaptés en fait à la pratique. Donc ça peut être de nouvelles formes de diffusion, ça peut être des podcasts, ça peut être des activités de réseautage, ça peut être des bandes dessinées, des spectacles, donc avoir véritablement des nouvelles formes de diffusion qui rejoint davantage le public cible et qui ne reste pas uniquement dans très théorique en fait dans la communauté académique. Donc il y a ça comme point majeur que je vois et qui est aujourd'hui en fait une limite en fait des projets de recherche qu'on met sur lesquels on travaille. On a l'impression que oui, c'est très bien, on fait la recherche en collaboration, mais maintenant au niveau de qu'est-ce qui ressort de cette recherche-là, quels sont les résultats, comment on les vulgarise, comment on les partage en fait à la communauté pour pas que ça reste uniquement peut-être au niveau de l'incubateur ou au niveau du professeur qui mène la recherche, mais que ça arrive véritablement au public cible, aux entrepreneurs. Donc c'est à nous de créer en fait des nouvelles formes de diffusion pour s'assurer que ces résultats-là atteignent les personnes qui sont finalement les plus concernées par ces recherches-là. Donc, j'ai une autre idée aussi sur l'importance de sensibiliser aussi les entrepreneurs sur ces projets de recherche-là qu'on mène.
Oh, nous avons une invitée.
Oui, allô.
Hi, Suchit. Hello. Welcome. That's okay. We'll get to you very soon.
Je vais juste continuer sur l'importance en fait de sensibiliser les entrepreneurs sur les projets de recherche sur lesquels on travaille. Parce que c'est sûr qu'il y a beaucoup d'organismes avec lesquels on travaille qui sont déjà convaincus de l'importance de ces recherches-là, mais parfois, c'est pas nécessairement clair, justement, lorsqu'on va interroger un entrepreneur, il va te dire à quoi ça me sert. Moi, au day-to-day, j'ai besoin de financement, j'ai déjà trop de choses à faire, mon agenda est plein, pourquoi je participerai à une autre enquête, à quoi ça va servir, on ne voit même pas ces retombées-là. Donc, de sensibiliser aussi les entrepreneurs sur les retombées en fait de nos recherches. Et souvent, ce que je dis, c'est que c'est souvent grâce à ces recherches-là qu'on est capable d'avoir un mot à dire que ce soit aux différentes instances du gouvernement, au niveau municipal, au niveau provincial, au niveau fédéral, pour dire voilà, on a fait telle recherche, voilà ce que ça montre, et donc voilà ce qu'il faut faire. Donc il faut adapter les programmes. On a l'impression que par exemple au niveau du réseautage, ça va pas bien. Est-ce qu'on peut mettre en place un nouveau programme qui accompagne davantage les entrepreneurs au niveau du réseautage? Donc je pense qu'on doit diffuser aussi davantage ces retombées de la recherche là, qui ne sont peut-être pas suffisamment connues aussi par le public cible, et de dire que ces recherches-là, par la suite, ils sont véhiculés, ils sont communiqués à des instances justement pour améliorer les pratiques. Et bon, comme c'est souvent sur du long terme, parfois on n'a pas le temps où ça se perd, l'information se perd au courant des différentes activités qu'on a à faire. Mais je pense que c'est à nous aussi de, à la fois, mettre en place des activités qui sont des activités de diffusion qui sont un peu plus intéressantes pour les entrepreneurs, et aussi de sensibiliser davantage ces entrepreneurs-là sur l'importance de participer et d'adhérer à de tels projets, parce que éventuellement, ça peut avoir un impact sur les programmes gouvernementaux qui sont mis en place pour les accompagner, justement.
OK, très bien dit. Dans le fond, c'est rendre les formations accessibles pour les gens après, mais aussi les faire réaliser l'importance de leur participation va informer le résultat, and it's going to help them as well in the long run. OK, parfait. Yes, Dave.
I think an important point to answer that question in terms of how you're making it sexy for the entrepreneur is to answer the question, what's in it for me?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so the entrepreneur says, look, what am I getting? And it's something that we're trying to do from a university standpoint right now, where it's more about community engaged research. Before, what used to happen, and this is not just a Black community problem, but this was all these different minority communities. The indigenous communities would tell you the same thing. You have people coming saying they're doing research. They spend time in certain communities. The communities give off their time, their effort, and then that researcher goes on, gets their PhD, and moves on, and leaves nothing in the community.
Yeah.
And we're saying it's unacceptable. We can't continue to do that. So now it's the same thing with our entrepreneurs. You approach them, you say, look, we're doing this research project, and we need you to give how many hours? And I say, well, okay, what's in this for me? Why am I contributing to this, right? It's a different thing if we go in and we say, what are some of your pain points? What are some of the challenges? What are some of the things that we can help you with, right? Because they have to do market research. They need to do all kinds of different things. And maybe we could form a partnership with them and some of these bright young people we have at school, or even some of our professors who are doing certain research and are looking for ways. Because when you talk to our PhD students right now, let's not even talk about the MBAs and the other grads, the PhDs. Those guys who are doing that research where you can't even pronounce the title, you just start to read the title and you get a headache. You say, well, what is this about? So even when you start to talk to them, they're saying they want to do stuff that's more relevant, right? Something that contributes something to society and that. So through CSI, I've been doing work with them over the years to say, how can we create these opportunities for them to interface with community and really share that knowledge? We could be getting, and this is something from Martha, we could be setting up the fourth space and doing a big data dive where we encourage community organizations or entrepreneurs to come and sit and throw out their pain points, and you have panelists who are doing research, and you pair them up and say, okay, we're going to help you to go and do that. Because that's the answer in the question, what's in it for me? Because before it wasn't that. But now we recognize that both need to happen, and there's ways to do it, right? And we need to do more. We need to be more, but definitely it's a way to bring two sides together and increase knowledge on both sides. Because I just want to just say this too. It's not that because the guy has a PhD or he has this master's so that he knows what's going on. There's reciprocity, right? We sharing expertise while learning. Because they're teaching us stuff too, right? So I think it's important to get that out there. It's not to come in and say you're doing this wrong and that. It's like, how can we help you be better? And while we're doing that, we're learning things too that we can help to make ourselves better. Okay.
100%. Do you want to?
I agree with what was said. Definitely, I think there's a general kind of cynicism when we approach people for research, because it tends to be one way. It tends to be like, give us all this data, and then people don't necessarily see the results or the solutions that come out of it. So definitely encouraging, the two-way communication, the sharing of information in a way that's accessible and not maybe so academic or so geared towards, government data, but really solutions. This is how we're going to help to change things. I think that's going to definitely appeal to the community much more.
Mm-hmm. One of the, like you're talking about community research and making sure that it's valuable. One of the solutions that I would like to bring up is there is a community research guide that has been created at the Office of Community Engagement with my colleague Geneviève, as well as Amanda. It's called the Dewe Maganag My Relations Guide. And basically, it's a guide that helps with doing community research with Indigenous groups as well as non-Indigenous groups. And it encourages reflections and motivation of why you're doing this research and how can it feel réciproque as opposed to extractive. So it's a really good guide that has a lot of introspective questions to guide your reflection on it and how you can approach the communities you want to work with. So it is available on the Office of Community Engagement website. So I do encourage everyone to look into that when they're doing research with community. And then let's go to Suchit. Let's say hi. Hello. So
hello, and apologies again for being late. It's a situation that was beyond my control. So
no problem at all. We have time, and at least I'm not going to go into stereotypes, but usually it's yes. So exactly. Okay. So I would like to read your bio so people know you. So Suchit Ahuja is an assistant professor of supply chain and business technology management department at JMSB. Suchit is also the director of JMSB's Masters of Science program in business analytics and technology management. Suchit's research focuses on digital strategy and innovation, digital platforms and ecosystems, frugal digital innovation, societal impacts of digital innovation, and community-based innovation. He has published his research in journals including Information Systems Journal, Journal of Small Business Management, Information Technology for Development, etc., etc., etc. His research has been presented at prestigious conferences, including, there's a lot of acronyms. Let's say AOM, ICIS, AMCIS, you know. So, how are you?
great, thank you. Going back to Dave's point about being academics and loving our acronyms, so
yes.
That proves it, right?
There you go. Okay, so Esther was able to explain to us a bit of the research that you're working on together. One thing that I might add is, well, that I would like you to add is maybe explain how did you come to working with Esther and Orijin Village? And then you can also, if you would like to, in a nerdy way, explain a little bit of the research.
Absolutely. So thank you. Great to be here and contribute to this very important discussion that's going on. So going back to our collaboration with Orijin Village was the product of a program called MyTax. I guess, Esther, you already spoke about MyTax. As researchers, we are really used to working in our own lovely silos that we create. So it's good to step out of those silos once in a while. And I'm clearly a researcher that does not like to live in the silos. I step out and I engage with the community. In my own research, previously, I had researched impacts of technology, for example, on waste workers in India. And also worked for my thesis with a startup that was delivering products and services for nurses that were working in the First Nations within Canada. So I enjoy this type of, tend to enjoy this type of collaboration. Mm-hmm. And I completely agree with what was being said about, you don't need to do extractive research. It should be research with the community rather than research on the community. Mm-hmm. So research on the community means we are still living in colonized times, and to decolonize, we have to research with the community, which means that we have to do both a give and a take, right? It can't be just take and not give back. Mm-hmm. So I clearly believe in those values, and that's why I think the MyTax relationship with Orijin and with Esther and Williamson has worked so well is because we understand where we're coming from, and we understand the perspective that we're taking on approaching both the practice and the research. And so it's very important for us to bring this back to academia, which tends to live sort of in its own silo, and to break down those silos. We are the agents like Dave, the agents like myself and my colleagues that work on these projects, right? So what do we need? We need access. We don't have access to the data. We don't have access to these ecosystems. And so to create those access, that access to these communities, we need the organizations like Orijin. And then on the academic side, we need organizations like MyTax to help us bring that around with funding, etc. And so that's how the relationship started. I still remember my first conversation with someone at MyTax Concordia. His name was Ralph Cherry. He now works for the government to build international relationships. And it was a great conversation that we had, but being a researcher, I was skeptical, right? So I said, you're going to have to help me work my way through this and have my commitment, because I'm very skeptical about how these relationships work. And so he said, don't worry, I'll be there throughout, the process. And that's how we were able to actually write the MyTax proposal. There were a couple of revisions. Again, it's bureaucracy, academic, it takes a while. So, after 2 revisions, it was approved. We had a clear message from MyTax, from Esther's side, where she articulated what she was trying to do. We had to fit that messaging with our approach on research, and to sort of get that integration between, so just to create this win-win situation, right? So what is it that the organization needs? How is it that we're going to be able to help? And then what do we need on our part to sort of make the relationship happen? I think it takes that first step of commitment, but it also takes these agents who are able to guide us through the process. Because on our own, it would be a disaster. I can guarantee you that. Because we're not familiar, we don't know how to navigate the bureaucracy. So it takes a while before you can find your feet. It's almost like you're crawling and then suddenly you're walking and then now you're trying to run, right? So bringing this back to sort of what does it mean in terms of the student experience, right? So and I might be touching upon some of the points that you're going to ask us later about how do you make this sustainable, right? It's not us that are going to make this sustainable. It's whoever follows in this, process, the students, our colleagues, who learn from this experience and then maybe start their own projects. Maybe that is a way to, bring this conversation to academia so that we are more open, we are more engaging, we are more inclusive in the way we do research. So I think these are sort of the first steps, and then we are thankful to Orijin and the relationship that we're able to establish, because it's small, but it's impactful. It has a big impact. On the side, I also work with Dave on the community service initiative. So we have 2 teams that have worked with Dave the past semester on engagement with community service organizations. So these are the steps that from the academic side need to be taken in order to make this sustainable and get some meaning out of it for both sides. So again, so this is how the relationship evolved with and there were a number of visits. We visited the old office, we went there physically. We had the students go there. The students were sitting there as interns. We had, during the pandemic, it was online. It was, so there were, I would not say that, everything was, smooth, because we have to deal with, external environments. The startup, that has its own challenges of funding, etc., that we need to be, cognizant of, that, there might be challenges that are occurring. And so it takes a lot of conversation, time, effort, energy to drive these efforts. And I think that is an essential learning that has come out of this, at least for us, for me and my team, is that it's not it's not like an engine. You start it and it goes, right? You have to service it, you have to clean it, you have to put engine oil in it every so often, so to make sure that it runs smoothly. And so that's one of those things and so it takes a lot of commitment on our part to do that.
Amazing. That's a really beautiful answer. Thank you so much. All right. So one thing that I wanted to talk about is the language and cultural consideration. So this event is bilingual. Concordia is very bilingual friendly, but there is definitely some differences in the French community and the English-speaking community in terms of resources, in terms of literature for research, in terms of connections and social bubbles. And so it's always a challenge to find a middle ground. And I really wanted to make sure that this is an event that is open for both linguistic communities, because it is very important. And then on top of that, you add the fact that this is a federal government program, so it falls under Gouvernement du Canada, but all of the other provinces are majority English, and then we're in Quebec. And Cassandra, you mentioned, DESTA serves the English-speaking population in Quebec, which is a double minority. And so voila, languages. So my question is, how can we leverage bilingualism to strengthen connections between the entrepreneurial ecosystems, I would say entrepreneurial and research ecosystems. So I don't know who wants to start.
Je peux commencer en fait.
Oui, vas-y.
Dans le cas d'Origine Village, on était très conscients de ce qui se passe à Montréal. Les communautés noires francophones qui sont dans l'est de Montréal, oui, déjà sont prédisposés à peut-être avoir plus, je pourrais dire, plus de facilité dans cette société-là. Et on était aussi conscient que les communautés noires qui sont dans l'Ouest ont moins de facilité à avoir accès à certaines ressources à cause de la barrière de la langue. Et donc, ce qu'on a voulu vraiment faire, c'est de traduire tous nos services. Tous nos services sont en anglais et en français. Pour nous, c'était important. C'est sûr que notre staff est bilingue, là, donc c'est sûr que ça aide. Mais pour nous, c'était important parce qu'on ne voulait pas nécessairement reproduire ce qui se passe dans la société pour pouvoir aider mieux nos entrepreneurs dans cette société qui est complexe. Donc, il faut voir les éléments de façon importante, mais ceci n'empêche pas de pouvoir donner des outils pour ceux qui ont cette barrière au niveau du bilinguisme, de donner des outils pour pouvoir être aidés. Donc, je sais qu'il y a des projets de loi et des lois qui ont été passés qui rendent les accès peut-être un peu plus difficiles, mais c'est pour ça que des organismes comme Origine Village et Esther et autres sont là pour pouvoir aider dans ce sens-là.
Merci.
Yeah, what I can say about this is, language, at its origin, it's a tool for communication. It's something that should be bringing people together. But if we look at, the historic and the political charge that it has here, what I've seen with, members of the English-speaking Black community, not all, but some, there's kind of like a resistance, right? And it's political. It's based on the history and the, things that I think we have to be able to move past in order to see the value in just being able to communicate. Like, that's such an important aspect in anything that you do. And I think for the English-speaking Black community, there's so much value in being able to bridge with the French-speaking communities, because, like you said, there are more resources. There's a bigger community, a larger community. And, when you're a marginalized group already, it makes sense in terms of just being able to get more resources, coming together, uniting, like Unite and Prosper. That's the name of your, that's something that's so important. And I think that we tend to let political things get in the way of that. And I think that it's really important to encourage bilingualism on both sides, right? So that's what I'll say for that.
What does that look like in DESTA or through the boot camp program with CSI?
Say that again?
What does that look like with DESTA and the CSI?
So, I mean, our programming is in English, but we do encourage our participants to strengthen their French skills.
Okay.
We don't have an in-house program at DESTA for that, but we do liaise with other organizations for that. But again, I think we haven't completely figured out how to kind of get around the resistance,
Yeah, it's hard.
right? Because, I mean, that's what I'm seeing with a lot of the participants is like, you know, my family has been here for so many generations. We've always spoken English. Why can't we? So it's that thing that needs to be overcome.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've really honed in on that yet, the way to do that. But I know there are organizations like that do very well, you know, very good work in bridging that gap. And I think, you know, DESTA as an organization isn't there yet. I would say mostly because of resources and capacity. We're kind of focused on, okay, bringing the participants to where they need to be. But definitely, you know, we would like to work more with encouraging participants on getting those skills that are necessary. You can't really operate in this province without it, so.
Yeah, and it's not like to put you on the spot or anything like that. I think it also showcases how the answer is not necessarily, okay, let's all be bilingual. Like if you're French, you should learn English. If you're English, you should learn French. Sometimes it's also just having a space that is welcoming for whatever language you want to show up speaking. Yeah. Dave?
I think it's more about the space, because I mean, I'm not fluently bilingual. And for me, I can speak I'm very articulate in English, but I can't do the same in French, so I panic, and you know, but I understand more than I'm able to articulate. But I never tried to make it a barrier, you know. So like, how can we, even when we one of the programs we're doing at CSI is it's called our MBA 661, where we get MBA students to do community work for credit, or like we were doing last semester with Suchit, getting his MSc students and stuff. And we're working with people around the world, right? Sometimes we have partnerships where we're working with entrepreneurs in developing countries who want to do business in Canada. And we had a team of women in Palestine who wanted to export dates into the Canadian market. I got a member of the team who could speak Hebrew. When we're working with people in Latin America and stuff, I try to get people on the team who could speak Spanish. And so you try to create these opportunities. I mean, because the main part of the thing is that the entrepreneur is supposed to be able to speak English. That's not even coming from us. That's coming from our partner, the Trade Facilitation Office. But we realize that even though they're supposed to, right, if you have somebody on the team who's speaking their language, you get more out of it, right? So we try as far as possible to get to do that. But one of the things from a black community standpoint, from the English speaking, right, it comes down to an age thing. Because sometimes you say, well, look, there's this resistance. But some of those older Anglophones who are resisting, who it seems like they're resisting, if you check their kids, they made sure all their kids was in French immersion and all of that stuff. So their kids are fluently bilingual, right? But they say, well, look, you know, the time's passed, but they're making sure that their kids could actually do it, you know? But where the thing really falls down for some of us is over and above the politics and the optics, sometimes just the interactions between us, you know? Because I've been to meetings with the police and stuff. Police headquarters, the heart of the thing, in the city. And they say, listen, we need to hear from Dave. And I'm speaking English. And the black people in the room refuse to speak English. All the police they say, no, we want to hear what you need to say. So, and we have black people in the room who say no, and they could speak English. So, you know, you get some of that that kind of thing, is, you know, you're going like, what's the deal? If the police is agreeing to speak to you in this because they want your contribution, why we have our own community saying they're not, and it's not because they can? You know, so you get things like that, and then the thing starts going back and forth, and then you say, well, okay, that's how we're going to be, right? But thankfully for me, the young people are bridging that gap, and you know, we're getting past some of that. And once we get past that, the powers have to catch up. Because one of the big sticking points for some key people in our community is, they say you're supposed, you know, if you learn French, you're gonna be better, you're gonna this, you're gonna do that. And it's not translating. It's not translating at all. The person learns French and he's driving a taxi. You know, he's not, he has this law degree, and he's speaking French. But where's the job? Where's the thing that's coming with it? And the Anglophone kids are going, they graduate from Concordia, they graduate from McGill with their French immersion, and they're working. So there's a disconnect there. Somebody not telling the truth. Because the idea is that, okay, if you're bilingual, you could connect, and that, where's the thing? But when you look at, and you know we live in neighborhoods, there's the West and the East and the North and the stuff. When you look at the places where a lot of the poverty, more poverty is in the areas where people are speaking the most French. So language is not the thing. Something else is at work there, and we need to be really looking into it and see, and not just take that face value and say, yeah, you're in Quebec, so you should do this and that and that. Let's drill it a little more. I think we owe it to our community, to drill it a little more and see what's really going on, because it's not something. There's a disconnect there. There's a big disconnect with reality in terms of what's happening and networks and stuff. Because you could have a whole bunch of French networks, right? And it's not carrying you any place. And you say, well, okay, why? I went out there, you know, I did my Duolingo, and I'm doing all this stuff, you know, and I'm not getting from here to there. So what's the point? And I spent all that time trying to do that, and I could have been invested doing something else that would have gotten me there. Right? So we have to be careful. I mean, I'm dealing with the reality. You know, I'm not hung up about the premiere and all this stuff. I'm dealing with my interactions and what I see, right? And a lot of times people just repeating slogans, but they haven't, in the reality of what's going on, it's a totally different thing. So I just say we have to be careful there.
I like what Esther and Cassandra said about trying to kind of unite the different sides. All of the organizations and companies and entrepreneurs and researchers that are in the room, I do highly encourage that you have events or initiatives where you are collaborating with your homologue of the other language. So if you're like a French non-for-profit, I encourage you to have an event where you are partnering with an English non-for-profit org, because that will help with not only like connecting the two communities, but then also sharing resources. Because sometimes I do see how, let's say, my French entrepreneur friends and my English entrepreneur friends have access to different resources. And like, I'm lucky to know about both because I speak both languages. But then when I tell one side, they're like, oh, I actually haven't heard of that. And so, so I do encourage like matching up. Oui, Esther and Suchit, do you want to say something?
Sure. So I just want to pick up where Dave left off, because he's hitting some really good points in terms of how to identify, you know, what really is a driving factor and enabler, and what is a hindrance to progress, right? And I'd like to answer this maybe in 2 or 3 different sections. So one section is purely economic, right? And if you figure out, okay, when we talk about entrepreneurship, we talk about ecosystems, right? And the way to growth and the way to progress is to plug yourselves into global ecosystems, right? How much are we really exporting? How much interest is there for people from other places to actually invest in us, right? I'm just elevating the discussion to a global level, because we, like it or not, we live in a globalized world, right?
Yeah.
And if you using language as a strength, right? So if there are, you know, entrepreneurs and ecosystems that are, you know, predominantly French speaking, they could be, you know, targeting massive markets around the world that are francophone. if there are, entrepreneurs that are predominantly English speaking, pretty much the whole world is available to you as a market. So why aren't we considering those aspects where, the way to prosperity is actually to open our doors rather than keep them closed? And I think that's a big factor which very few people are paying attention to and as Dave said, right, even with a initiative like CSI, you do have international partnerships. And, frankly, the more languages, the better, because you're able to cater to many customers with varying, levels of, market access, etc., where either you serve them as a market or you have a market open to your products and services. So I think this is a strength which really needs to be leveraged. But we unfortunately, because of the politics, we kind of lose sight of this, right? Second thing is from a social point of view is do we have the humility to accept that we need to learn, right? And then that needs to come from a sense of responsibility to and respect towards cultural nuances. And I think that is another aspect that we need to remember, whether we are doing research or we are practitioners or whatever that aspect of our work might be. But there is a respectability that comes with accepting culturally what needs to be done and what nuances there might be in those interactions. And we talk a lot about cultural diversity, but we truly need to embrace it, right, in a way. And the third part of this is very close to my heart because I am a technology researcher. So I'm saying technology is solving the language problem rather than creating the language problem, right? Look at this. What are we doing here? We have, the translators right here, right? So, but this has been there for ages now.
Yeah.
Now with AI, there are many more advances in language and linguistics, verbally, which are, just creating these massive ecosystems where it doesn't matter what language you speak, because it's real time, it's there, it's whenever you need it, it's conversational, so it's available to you, right? So I come from a country that has 22 official languages, by the way. So I understand this mess a little bit more than so.
Absolutely.
But what I see there is AI-based technologies for any government work that you need to do, which is, they have an app for it, which is backed by a technology infrastructure that does real-time translation of documents, of conversations, of chats that you're having with these bots. So it doesn't matter. You input your forms in a different language, and you get back the results in a different language that you understand, or in the same language that you understand. And it doesn't matter who you are, what language you speak. At the end of the day, what matters is, can I get my work done with the government, with other ecosystems, with partnerships, etc. And so I'm seeing that happen as we speak. And why aren't we adopting, these technologies that are open, that are out there, that are helping us move to the next level as entrepreneurs, as ecosystems, as social organizations, and help the people that really need help, right? So this is my question. I'm a researcher. I ask questions. So this is what I'm trained to do.
That's a really good point that you touched upon, the combination of cultural humility, but also technology. Because like you said, just the device you're wearing today, it's not new, but it's not there at all the events. So someone has to be like, actually, maybe we should have something like that. Okay, so Esther, je te laisse parler, and then we're going to go to the audience so that they can ask us any questions that they might have. Ok, vas-y.
Ben, en fait, c'est pour converger sur ce que Dave a dit et Suchit. En fait, je trouve que dans les communautés noires, que ce soit anglophones et francophones, on vit les mêmes éléments. Donc, la question du bilinguisme, est-ce que ce n'est pas une excuse? Moi, je pense que c'est une excuse parce que la majorité d'entre nous, on est bilingue. Bon, peut-être qu'il y a des personnes qui le sont moins, mais même là, les enjeux sont les mêmes. Et c'est là que je suis vraiment d'accord avec ce que Suchit a dit par rapport à pourquoi pas puiser sur les relations qu'on a internationalement. Nous sommes presque tous rattachés à des pays d'origine. pourquoi pas puiser ça comme notre force? Et aussi les autres langues que l'on parle, parce qu'on ne parle pas juste français et anglais. Il y a une force qu'on peut puiser de tout ça, d'aller dans notre bagage culturel et de pouvoir le rendre à disposition à tous. Donc, c'est ce que je voulais partager.
Ouais. The way we are answering these questions, ça touche beaucoup à l'entrepreneuriat, puis genre le marché global. But also, I would like us to also think about that same thing, but in the research world. Because sometimes it's like, maybe it's just me, but I'm noticing that like it's often challenging to talk about Black entrepreneurship and research without only talking about the entrepreneurship part or the business part, or, you know. I'm a nerd. I really want to talk about research. Okay, so now we're going to be talking a little bit with the audience. So I know we have a mic for the audience. Si les gens ont des questions, on va vous donner un micro. Tu vas pouvoir dire ton nom and then poser ta question. So you'll get a mic, you get to say your name, and then you can ask a question.
You can raise your hand if you have a question in the audience. And for those of you listening on Zoom, feel free to type your question into the chat or use the raise hand function. I see one right here.
Oh, hi. Yes, I'm Dwight Best, Executive Director at Réseau Action du Canada, Action Network of Canada. And I want to thank all of the speakers. Really, this is such an important conversation. And I hope it's just maybe the first of many. My question is really the topic of bilingualism that came up. It's something that we hear a lot about, and I am very, very happy that as soon as you broached the subject, I was just thinking, like, is that really the issue that we're talking about? And I was very happy to hear that Dave mentioned that often we kind of repeat these slogans, and the fact is the resources are not going to where they need to go, regardless of the language of the people who speak it. And that's what I'd like to know more about from your perspective. How do we get those resources to the people who need them, regardless of what language we speak, especially within this context here in Quebec? And I will mention one thing that I've mentioned. I was actually at a conference this weekend, a national conference with Groupe 3737, which you all probably know about. And that kind of came up again, where we see entrepreneurs who are based here in Montreal, in Quebec, who struggle. Somehow they make it to a certain level and they leave. And when they leave, they blow up. And then we see them, sometimes they come back, sometimes they don't. And we're kind of losing the opportunity to stay with our homegrown success stories. And I think that's connected to the resources. So I'd just love to hear your perspective on that.
Dwight, can you just to make sure I understood properly, and the panelists, are you talking specifically in terms of business or entrepreneurship or research? Or both, I don't know.
It could be both.
Okay, thank you. Whoever wants to answer.
Je peux commencer au niveau de la recherche. C'est sûr que moi, j'ai commencé à l'UQAM, ça fait à peine 2 ans, et au niveau de la recherche, il y a beaucoup d'enjeux. Suchit, oui, parlait de certains enjeux au niveau administratif et au niveau pour accéder à des financements, pour impliquer justement le milieu pratique, la communauté pratique, les intéressés au monde de la recherche. Donc effectivement, il y a beaucoup d'enjeux et dépendamment aussi des projets de recherche sur lesquels on travaille. Il ne faut pas oublier qu'au gouvernement, il y a ce qu'ils appellent la stratégie, admettons, de recherche et d'innovation, et donc il y a des axes spécifiques qui sont soutenus. Donc des axes, si tu travailles, admettons, aujourd'hui sur l'intelligence artificielle, sur certains projets au niveau des énergies renouvelables, de l'hydrogène vert, donc il y a certains thématiques ou bien certaines recherches qui sont prioritaires versus d'autres. Donc, c'est pas évident, en tout cas de mon expérience, c'est pas évident lorsqu'on travaille dans les domaines de gestion, d'entrepreneuriat, déjà d'avoir accès à certaines sources de financement justement pour mettre en place des projets de recherche. Côté, il y a à tort ou à raison, hein, j'ai pas nécessairement d'avis là-dessus. C'est sûr que moi, dans mes champs de compétences, j'aurais aimé ça avoir plus d'accès au financement et plus de projets qui sont financés. Mais c'est ça, on vit dans une société où il y a, c'est ça, il y a des thématiques qui sont prioritaires versus d'autres, et on n'a pas accès à toutes les ressources et à tout le financement qu'on souhaiterait avoir pour tous les projets et pour tous les enjeux en fait qu'on identifie au sein de la communauté, que ce soit en entrepreneuriat, en collaboration, entrepreneuriat étudiant. Il y a beaucoup d'enjeux qui sont soulevés, mais c'est ça, ça nous prend des ressources en fait pour travailler là-dessus. Mais on se rend compte lorsqu'on creuse un peu plus qu'il y a certains thématiques en fait qui sont prioritaires au moment d'accéder à des opportunités de financement, ce qui est dommage. Et voilà, donc c'était mon expérience que je voulais partager par rapport à ça. Mais je suis d'accord avec vous lorsque vous dites, c'est qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire en fait pour avoir plus de ressources. J'ai pas nécessairement de solution à cette heure-ci. Je partage la même la même question.
En fait, c'est pour enchérir sur ce que ma collègue vient de dire. C'est vrai qu'il n'y a pas autant de ressources, il y a des axes prioritaires. Mais pour nous, le travail, en fait, je dirais la communauté ou les communautés noires, notre travail, c'est vraiment d'axer sur, nos acquis, mais aussi de toujours mettre en alerte nos politiciens de l'importance de pouvoir investir dans les communautés noires. C'est ce qui a fait qu'il y a eu ce fonds qui a financer FIS, nos organisations, c'est pour ça qu'on est ici. Mais c'est certain que c'est un début de travail. Je ne dis pas que c'est la première fois que le gouvernement canadien a investi dans nos communautés, mais de façon substantielle, telle que c'est fait présentement, il faut pouvoir, avec ces recherches, revenir avec des éléments qui sont importants de cibler et de mettre en alerte le gouvernement canadien et tous les gouvernements pour pouvoir investir dorénavant sur d'autres éléments. Pour moi, c'est un départ important. Ce n'est pas terminé. On n'a pas tout résolu, ça c'est certain. Mais c'est déjà un départ. Mais en même temps, nous, les communautés, on doit pouvoir se mobiliser ensemble pour pouvoir maximiser les ressources qu'on a déjà. Et les ressources, c'est notre savoir-être et notre savoir-faire. C'est ce qu'on doit mettre de l'avant.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question was very well answered. I think in addition to that, what I see that's kind of specific to Montreal in terms of the Black community is really, there's a division along language lines, there's a division along, different islands, what island are you from? And there's not this, okay, there's a root that ties us all together. We seem to have difficulty finding that. And I think until we are able to do that, we're not gonna have as much power clearly as we could. And I think, like you said, when people have a tendency to leave the province and then they skyrocket, it's because there are certain political games here that don't exist elsewhere. So it doesn't become something that's holding people back. And it's a mentality. before anything else, because, like Dave was saying, it's not necessarily a reality, but then if you believe that that's blocking you, it's gonna block you. And that's, I think, one of the biggest problems that we see here.
I think sometimes you have to leave to acquire your own reality. I mean, if you keep in this in terms of entrepreneurship and research, right, those guys blow up when they leave because they start accessing bigger markets. Because they're here and they're in this little bowl. And I get in trouble in the boot camp when I say at the beginning, if you are setting up a business to service the Black community in Montreal, don't do it. And people get all upset at me. I said, don't. And then they said, but how could you say that? And I'm saying, but let's see the numbers. How many Black people are in Montreal? And you hear a whole thing, 50,000, 100,000, 300, and you start breaking it down. Like, let's say it's 300. What's the age group? And then you start to hear how many of them below 15? And by the time you get to that spot where out of that, whatever the population is, how many in that population have real disposable income to buy anything? The number is so small in relation to other places. So I'm saying, like, if you're setting up a business to solely service that market, then what are you doing? You're already limiting yourself. And then people start to be less mad. But when you throw it out there initially, because they say, and then depending again on what it is, because of all these differences, right? There's Africa, Caribbean, this, that, and everybody has some of the same things, right? It's like shea butter, right? I'm tired of these entrepreneurs coming and everybody has some shea butter, right? They're doing something with it, and their shea butter is better than the other person's shea butter. Like, seriously, like, come on, like, we gotta get out of here, get out of that, So, but like I said, they get mad at first, and then when you actually start drilling down, they see, like, this is the big market, this is the world, like Suchit is saying. We're getting out of that. We're using instead of making the differences divide us, right? If I'm doing something in one of those African countries, you better want to find one of those brothers or sisters from there to help me. I'm doing something in the Caribbean, let me find a Caribbean brother to think. That's how I see it. But it's not to say, well, you from here, I'm from there, because you could never eradicate that, right? But that's a strength. That is some of the things that confuse some of the white people, because they see everybody as one. But this is different to, like, for example, like the Jewish community. They are wrong religion. So you could come from anywhere, but it unites you. But you can't tell a Jamaican that he's Trinidadian. I mean, it doesn't make sense. If you're in the Caribbean, you have certain things in common, but you're not from the same place. But that doesn't mean that you have to be fighting. It doesn't mean that. It means that there are things that you could discover together. Hey, you guys are calling it that, but we're calling it, in Trinidad, we say pigeon peas. The Jamaicans say it's gungu peas. It's peas. Right? But you need to embrace that and say, okay, what are we trying to do? We're trying to import peas from Jamaica and Tobago and that for the Canadian market. So we're coming together, and that's what we're going to do. And that's the way I approach it. And thankfully, because I'm always the glass half full, I see the younger people are getting past that, and that's really encouraging. But I mean, we're still not there yet, but we're on the road to getting there. And if we do like what Suchit says, focus on the business. For me, forget you're doing a for-profit business, you're not a not-for-profit. You're trying to make money. How can we make money? Who is going to pay you to do what you want to do outside of your family and friends? Because your family and friends ain't paying. They gave you the idea, so they want the food free, they want this and that, right? So to me, focus, this is about entrepreneurship and research, so let's really put the focus on that. And that helps us to get around some of our own insecurities, and that we say, look, what are we here to do? Right? We're here to expand this business, or to create this opportunity, or to address this need in the marketplace, and we need that collective to be able to do it. But we don't allow ourselves to do that because we get sidetracked with the politics and stuff which has nothing to do with us. right? And just in closing, and Dwight will bear me out on this one, a lot of our black students in political science in university, you ask them, why are they there? Well, my friend was there. Why are they there? They have good math marks, good science marks, good stuff, but they're in political science. How much of us you see in any politics doing anything? So maybe they're trying to explain their existence, but again, we need some different guidance. And they used to use the excuse before that is the white academic advisor tell them to do that. That's not true anymore. They're doing it of their own accord now. The white advisor is saying, no, we need more of you in these places because it's to their benefit to get us in different places. And now we're doing it ourselves. So we just have to be careful, right? Come together, work together to advance. And from an entrepreneurship standpoint, is the best excuse, right? Massive success in whatever language. That's the way I approach it.
Yeah, go ahead, Suchit.
So the question was, how do we get the resources to where they're needed, right? So again, wearing my research hat, I would ask, how do we identify who needs those resources? And how do we identify who needs what resources? And the two key things that need to be done are data and voice, right? So do we have the data? Because as Dave said and as others said, you cannot treat this population as a monolith. There are nuances in the needs and requirements within each of those entrepreneurial ecosystems, right? For example, when we were working with Orijin Village, what we realized was the needs for an advanced entrepreneur who might be developing an app are very different from an entrepreneur that just wants to sell chocolates, right? So you can't, give the person selling chocolates an AI solution because they don't even have a website. So the first step for them might be to actually learn about digitization, etc. And you need to train them on those skills. So training might be the first step for them. So in terms of resources, they don't need funding. They need real good training, right? And so those are things which, so for us, data on these populations is the key where we begin. And then we ask questions based on the data and we provide solutions based on the data. So I think that's why Orijin Village is a key partner for us in terms of just understanding, where to begin even, right? And the second thing is what Dave also touched upon was voice, right? We need voices from the community, right? We don't want voices that are from outside the community because maybe outside the community, the understanding of those nuances is not as much. So I do agree that maybe political science is not a good choice, but you still need those champions within the community, within the entrepreneurial ecosystems that are able to engage with you, right? And they might come from the community with a higher level of understanding of maybe technology, maybe business, maybe organizing and institution building or something like that. But you need those champions from the community. So data and voice, I think, are the two key things that are main ingredients before we can even start any intervention to get the resources to the right people. So our understanding of who the people are and what resources they needs to be done in a much more sophisticated, research-oriented way, rather than doing it by a piecemeal or somebody said, oh, I have this great program, I don't know anything about it, but I just have money to disburse, so I'm going to disburse all of this money. But that will not make a difference.
Perfect. Is there another question from the audience?
Je vais me mettre debout comme toi. Mon nom c'est Kerlando. Mon entreprise c'est Ad Media. Salut. Ma question est beaucoup. Présentement, je suis en pleine réflexion par rapport au commerce de détail, par rapport au reprenariat et tout ça. C'est des sujets qui m'intéressent énormément et que je trouve qu'il y a une importance capitale pour nos communautés, justement. J'ai toujours été dans du B2B. J'ai jamais fait vraiment du B2C. À peine, je veux dire, quand je coupais le gazon pour les voisins, peut-être, je faisais du B2C. Mais je me demande, parce qu'en fait, on le sait très bien que nos communautés ont été étudiées de fond en large depuis des centaines d'années. les gens savent comment nous vendre leurs produits qu'on n'en a pas nécessairement besoin. Non, mais c'est vrai. Exactement. Qu'on n'en a pas nécessairement besoin, ils le savent exactement où appuyer, quel moment appuyer pour nous faire danser, pour nous faire bouger, pour nous faire avancer. Ma question est, par rapport à la recherche, j'aimerais ça éventuellement, disons que j'ai des dépanneurs. Comment je fais pour attirer ma communauté? Parce que ce que je remarque beaucoup, c'est que dans nos commerces, on ne sait pas nécessairement comment se parler. Mais par contre, quand on travaille dans une autre communauté, nous savons comment parler à la clientèle. Je trouve que quand on parle de concret dans les recherches, pour moi, présentement, c'est ça que j'ai besoin. Comment vendre à ma communauté? Parce que les business B2C que je veux faire, justement, je veux viser que les personnes noires, for us by us, le fameux FUBU. Puis je trouve que c'est important tout de même aussi, pas que les personnes noires, justement, mais oui, peut-être toutes les alliés qui sont autour, parce que maintenant, IGA vend de la bouffe haïtienne, du riz congelé. Pourquoi nous, on ne peut pas le faire dans nos commerces comme tel, justement? C'est ça que j'ai besoin de savoir concrètement. Est-ce qu'il y a des études concrètement qui vont me dire qu'Orlando, au Canada, aux États-Unis, voilà comment tu peux vendre à toutes les communautés noires? Puis pas seulement aussi, bien sûr, on s'entend, il y a l'Afrique, il y a, on dit, on n'est pas, nos problèmes sont pas, on n'est pas une communauté monolithe, mais moi je trouve que c'est tout à fait le contraire. Justement, on est sortis sur le même continent. On vient tous du même continent et on a tous les mêmes problèmes, qu'on soit sur le continent, qu'on soit ici, on vit tous les mêmes problèmes structurels, racistes, systémiques et toutes ces affaires-là. Pour moi, quand on dit nos communautés, j'aime bien le dire étant donné qu'on a toutes sortes de cultures, mais pour moi, on est la même communauté. Comment est-ce qu'on peut faire pour que moi, je puisse vendre à ma propre communauté? J'ai besoin de savoir. Parce que les autres, ils ont les techniques, puis je ne l'ai pas. Mais j'ai besoin de savoir. Merci.
Je vais commencer, si ce n'est pas un problème. Est-ce qu'il y a des recherches sur ce que tu recherches? Non, il n'y en a pas. Par contre, je peux parler d'expérience. Ce qui fonctionne avec nous, c'est vraiment le grassroots, le lien que tu tisses avec les différentes communautés. C'est un travail ardu, mais il paye à la longue. J'ai fait l'expérience avec Orijin, même d'autres entreprises que j'ai eues dans le passé. C'est vraiment aller directement tisser des liens avec différents réseaux, avec différentes instances qu'il y a dans les communautés noires. C'est ça qui fait la différence. Le relationnel est très, très important. C'est certain que si on va avec les médias traditionnels, les gens s'éloignent de ça. Déjà, ce n'est pas juste une question de communauté noire, c'est toutes les communautés qui s'éloignent de ça. Mais pour nous, de trouver ce lien-là entre nous, c'est vraiment d'aller dans les instances, aller dans les églises. Ça a l'air bête ce que je dis, mais c'est vraiment ça. Aller dans les différents cercles, les différents regroupements. C'est là que tu vas trouver vraiment la mobilisation que tu cherches. Parce qu'une personne connaît 10 autres personnes et connaît 100 autres personnes, et c'est comme ça que ça se passe à travers. Je ne crois pas... Oui, c'est vrai que, bon, je suis née au Québec, j'ai vu la différence, comme mes parents venaient d'Haïti, beaucoup de choses se faisaient à l'église, si je peux le mettre ainsi. Et qu'on a vu que la société québécoise a beaucoup bougé au niveau de ça. Mais je ne crois pas que nos communautés ont beaucoup changé de modèle par rapport à ça. Donc, je pense qu'il faut aller au départ avec ce qu'on reconnaît dans nos communautés, de littéralement percer là. Et aussi, tu avais un autre segment de ta question qui mentionnait... Bon, ça va me revenir. Mais en gros, je pense que c'est vraiment le grassroots qui est vraiment important et de tisser des liens au fur et à mesure avec différents cercles, différents regroupements, différentes institutions même qui sont dans nos communautés. C'est ça qui fait la différence. Il n'a pas de recherche. Oui.
Faire un truc comme ça, ça demande énormément de temps. La recherche, ce temps-là, on n'a pas, c'est investi ailleurs. Notre impôt, ou les gens qui font ça, justement, ces recherches-là pour nous, c'est des recherches concrètes qu'on a besoin. Fait que le réseautage, c'en est quelque chose d'extrêmement important. On en fait très peu, effectivement, dans la communauté. Mais les recherches qui fait qu'on rentre dans notre modèle IA, puis capable de nous pondre des trucs marketing, c'est ça qu'on a besoin grosso modo, comme c'est cette base-là, comme de connaissances réelles.
Je suis d'accord avec toi, mais comme Suchit l'a dit, tu peux être d'un point de vue recherchiste, et si tu n'as pas accès à la communauté, mais tu n'as pas accès à la donnée. Et c'est ce qui se passe dans nos communautés. En fait, je peux le dire pour Origine Village, si je n'avais pas ouvert la porte grande ouverte, ben, il n'aurait pas l'information. Impossible. Donc, c'est comme ça dans nos communautés. Donc, avant d'arriver à la recherche, il y a un travail de grassroots qui doit se faire. Ça, c'est mon opinion.
Je pense que ce genre d'événement montre aussi l'importance de... par exemple, toi, Kerando, tu es un entrepreneur noir et la question que tu poses, c'est une question qui t'aiderait dans tes entreprises. Mais pour répondre à la question, il faut des gens comme toi dans la recherche. Donc, pour pouvoir avoir cette réponse, il faut que tu sois prêt à aussi t'investir dans la recherche pour faire partie de la réponse. So you're part of the solution, basically. And je veux pas que ça sonne comme... c'est pas... it's not a threat. This is why I didn't want to say it, because it sounds like one. But, you know, like if you... To get the fruits of it, you need to put in the labor. And quand Suchit parlait de créer des relations avec les communautés, c'est un échange. So your experience, your perspective, your insights goes into the research. The research is, you know, analyzed. It's like expanded, and then it's like disseminated. Ça revient à la communauté. Et là, les gens peuvent travailler avec ce genre d'informations. So it's a cycle, but it needs two people to be part of it, or two parties to make that cycle work. Donc, c'est une bonne question et je trouve que c'est intéressant, mais je trouve aussi que c'est bien parce que ça montre justement l'importance du manque qu'il y a dans la communauté noire avec l'entrepreneuriat et la recherche. But thank you for the question.
On a une autre question ici.
C'est un peu une question et un commentaire en même temps. Williamson Dulcier, cofondateur d'Origine Village. Je vous raconte une petite anecdote rapide. Quand on a commencé Orijin, la première chose qu'on a décidé de faire, c'est de faire des focus groups, puis aller chercher des données par rapport à les entrepreneurs noirs. On a appelé Statistique Canada, on leur a demandé des études, ils nous ont dit qu'ils n'ont absolument rien à ce niveau-là. C'est nous qui devions faire notre propre recherche. Mais quand on regarde du côté de nos voisins aux États-Unis, il y a énormément de data par rapport à les entrepreneurs, par rapport aux gens qui consomment, qui sont afro-descendants. Mais au Canada, on n'a absolument rien en termes de data. Ça fait seulement 4 ans que le Black Knowledge Hub est existant, où il y a un organisme qui se spécialise pour aller chercher ce data-là auprès des entrepreneurs. Ma question, peut-être, c'est ces données-là, on en a besoin pour les entrepreneurs, mais on a aussi besoin de savoir qui consomme chez nous, que je trouve que c'est extrêmement important. Maintenant, il y a un groupe aux États-Unis ou au UK qui s'appelle Black Group, puis ils ont sorti une statistique qui m'a bouleversé un peu. 71% des gens afrodescendants achètent à cause qu'ils ont été influencés. C'est énorme en termes de chiffres. Donc, moi, qui est un Black, qui dit je te conseille d'aller dans tel magasin, il y a plus de chances que tu achètes là-bas à cause qu'on a été influencé. Donc, il y a beaucoup de data. Exactement. Donc, ça revient au fait qu'on est très relationnel dans nos communautés. Puis si quelqu'un te conseille quelque chose ou commente, ben, il y a de fortes chances que tu achètes ce produit-là en tant que tel. Mais on est toujours au niveau où on doit aller chercher de la data sur qui on est, comment les gens consomment chez nous, ça devient extrêmement important. Et aujourd'hui, il y en a énormément de data. On ne peut pas l'analyser seul. Donc, imagine-toi un petit entrepreneur qui commence sa business, mais qui veut aller global. Comment il va faire pour aller global? Où est-ce qu'il va trouver cette data-là? Comment il va analyser cette data-là pour s'assurer qu'il lance sa business dans un marché global, avec beaucoup de compétition? C'est quasiment impossible pour cette entreprise-là de faire ça. Donc, comment on fait pour aider nos entreprises à avoir les données, à les comprendre, parce qu'il y en a trop maintenant, ça bouge tellement rapide, la technologie avance tellement rapidement qu'on a même de la misère à s'adapter à la technologie. Donc, comment on fait? Les problématiques sont énormes pour nos communautés. La data, moi, je pense que c'est le point où on doit vraiment réaliser où est-ce qu'on est rendu, puis qu'est-ce qu'on a besoin de faire, puis frapper aux portes de ces instances-là qui nous disent, ben, maintenant, on a de la data pour nos entreprises, on a de la data pour savoir exactement qu'est-ce qui se passe. Il faut trouver des solutions à ces problématiques-là maintenant.
Je voulais ajouter à ce que tu viens de dire, merci beaucoup. Le programme, donc Black Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub, en ce moment, ils sont en train de travailler sur 2 études nationales. Donc la première, c'est une étude quantitative et la deuxième, c'est une étude qualitative, justement pour adresser ce manque qu'on n'a pas ce genre de données avec Stats Canada. So, l'étude quantitative, c'est un sondage, je pense que c'est peut-être 10 minutes, qui est en ce moment disponible pour tous les entrepreneurs noirs au pays pour pouvoir participer, justement pour avoir un profil quantitatif de qu'est-ce qu'ils font, où est-ce qu'ils sont situés, ils sont dans quel genre d'industrie, qu'est-ce qu'ils vendent, etc. Pour qu'à la fin, en sortant du mandat de 4 ans du programme, on peut avoir ce genre de données. Tu vas pouvoir aller demander à, pas Statistique Canada parce que ça vient de cette initiative, mais tu vas pouvoir justement avoir un endroit où te retourner pour avoir ces données and then travailler avec pour filtrer le genre de données que tu as besoin. Donc, pour ceux qui n'ont pas encore participé dans le sondage, je vous encouragerai à le faire. Donc, c'est disponible sur... I feel like I'm selling a product. Concordia.ca/Québec. Donc, on a de l'information par rapport au sondage quantitatif. And then, quand on parle du projet de recherche qualitative, basically right now, every knowledge hub has focus groups that they're running. And they're doing activities. One of them is called empathy mapping, where they are, bringing out the attributes of the Black entrepreneur in Canada. What is their reality like? What are they influenced by? What's their background? What do they care about? Who are they as a person? So that we don't just have the numbers, we also have the spirit of the Black entrepreneur. And like people have been saying, Black people are not a monolith, and so there is so many that we would like to capture. And so at the end of the focus groups, there is basically going to be a report, a summary, an analysis, and we want to have a sheet where you have different, what's the word? C'est pas des avatars. Personas, yeah. Donc, comme une charte avec personas of the different types or some of the types of entrepreneurs that we might have across the country. And this is also going to be very helpful at the end when we're doing governance, so using this for policy making, for program structuring, and program delivery. And so that is also on the website for those who want to join the focus groups. And because the program is delivered, a lot through the universities, there is going to be a concentration of Black entrepreneurs that are students and academics, but I would also, I'm taking this opportunity to bring it up because I also want to make sure that it's reaching entrepreneurs that are not students and that are not academics and that are outside the university bubbles. Yeah, that's all I had to say.
Je voulais juste rajouter quelque chose aux deux commentaires et questions qui ont été posés. Déjà, je suis totalement d'accord avec tout ce qui a été dit. Le relationnel dans la communauté est tellement important et ça fit aussi avec même sur le plan académique. Je donne un cours sur l'innovation, comment se diffuse l'information et l'innovation, et on parle du modèle épidémique. Donc, moi, je te connais, je te parle de mon produit que j'ai acheté, et donc c'est vraiment comme ça que ça fonctionne. C'est quand tu cibles, tu parlais de route tout à l'heure, d'églises, il y a des entrepreneurs que j'ai interrogés, effectivement, ils s'en vont dans des églises, donc c'était très, très vrai ce que tu disais tout à l'heure, pour avoir, donc bien sûr, tu cibles ton marché cible, le besoin de ton marché cible, et tu vas les voir où est-ce qu'ils sont. Et souvent, ça fonctionne beaucoup de bouche à oreille. Aujourd'hui, étant donné qu'on n'a pas encore les données, toutes les données quantifiables et chiffrables sur le marché et le profil de nos communautés, de la façon dont on consomme au sein de la communauté. L'autre chose aussi que je voulais dire, c'est un petit partage d'expérience. Dans le cadre de mes études, j'ai travaillé en temps partiel, je travaillais au ministère de l'économie. Et comment que ça fonctionne en fait pour pouvoir intégrer de nouvelles questions dans des programmes, dans des sondages qui sont faits à l'échelle provinciale ou même à l'échelle fédérale, c'est encore plus complexe lorsqu'on parle de Statistique Canada. Donc pour que Statistique Canada puisse commander une nouvelle étude qui porte sur l'entrepreneuriat ou bien sur la consommation des Noirs, ça commence par des petits projets comme ça. Donc c'est vraiment étape par étape. Ça commence par des projets où on va faire des focus group, où on va faire des études qualitatives, des études quantitatives aussi que vous faites. Et donc c'est à partir de la portée ou bien des résultats qu'on aura dans ce genre d'études quantitatives, ça va donner l'information ou bien quelque chose, enfin, ça va donner l'information en fait à Statistique Canada que il y a quelque chose qui se fait dans cette communauté-là, il y a quand même des études qui ont été menées, donc c'est pas peut-être l'échantillon n'est pas très grand, mais on voit qu'il y a quelque chose qui commence à se développer. Et c'est comme ça que, au fur et à mesure, avec les projets qu'on fait au sein de différentes organisations, on pourra avoir plus d'impact pour dire que oui, on veut commander, ça vaut la peine de commander une étude auprès de Statistique Canada qui s'étend un peu plus à l'ensemble soit au Québec, soit au Canada en entier. Mais ça, c'est vraiment des petits pas, petits succès. Donc, petits pas avec des petits projets, entre guillemets, sur lesquels on est en train de travailler avec un petit échantillon d'entrepreneurs. Mais plus on multiplie ces petits projets-là, la portée à la fin de la journée pourra être plus importante. Et donc, c'est comme ça qu'au final, on pourra avoir des données pour répondre à ta question sur c'est quoi le profil des consommateurs noirs au Québec. Parce qu'effectivement, aujourd'hui, ça n'existe pas, mais c'est, comme Martha disait tout à l'heure, c'est à nous tous, finalement, de nous impliquer lorsqu'on reçoit de tels sondages, lorsqu'on reçoit des sollicitations pour participer à des projets donner, on dit quoi, la pierre à la roue, en tout cas, faire partie, accepter d'être sollicité de participer à ce sondage-là, parce que c'est ça, au final, ces multiples initiatives-là qui auront une portée plus large et où on pourra justifier, ou bien Statistique Canada, je parle de Statistique Canada, mais aussi l'Institut de la statistique du Québec, pourra justifier l'opportunité en fait de faire un sondage à l'échelle de la population globale pour identifier les profils de ces consommateurs noirs au Québec. Là.
Did you want to say
Yeah.
something?
No, I just wanted to make 2 points. I don't want to, reiterate what people said. It was great. The first point, and it's a question. In the business that you're doing, are you keeping records of your clients? Are you keeping records of your clients? So you're developing a profile of, let's say, the demographics. Their age, their gender, where they live. You keeping a database with that?
Exactement. En fait,
This is really cool.
en fait, oui, absolument. Ça fait quoi? Ça fait bientôt 10 ans que mon entreprise existe. Puis mes clients sont beaucoup du B2B. Fait que j'ai pas besoin de savoir où ils habitent. J'ai besoin de savoir où se trouve leur bureau, leur nom et ainsi de suite. Oui, absolument. On a notre base de données, on a notre CRM qui nous aide aussi à avancer là-dessus. Ma question tantôt, c'était pas basé sur mes clients B2B, mais vraiment basé sur des clients B2C plus qu'autre chose, à savoir, ils sont dehors, ils sont où? Si j'ouvre un dépanneur à côté, est-ce que je veux l'ouvrir dans une communauté que je sais que je peux aller, je peux maximiser mes chances de réussite. C'est plus en ce sens que je parle à obtenir des données. C'est sur les autres personnes et non pas seulement les entrepreneurs. On est quoi? Même pas 1% de la communauté noire? Fait que j'ai besoin de savoir, moi, le 99%, là, comment ils pensent, on le sait déjà, bien sûr, mais je parle de business, j'ai besoin de plus de faits. Parce que si j'investis 100 000 dans des dépanneurs, j'ai besoin de m'assurer que c'est quelque chose qui va fonctionner. Puis oui, on sait très bien, là, c'est relationnel au Québec, dès qu'un noir fait quelque chose d'extraordinaire, tout le monde lui donne la tape dans le dos. Mais aussi, la tape dans le dos, il ne peut pas venir seulement quand tu fais un truc extraordinaire. Il faut que les gens soient capables de de voir ce que tu comptes faire et te donner la tape dans le dos pour que tu puisses le faire. Mais ma question, c'était plus basé sur les 99% des personnes noires qui sont dehors, qui sont des consommateurs.
Well, I already made my statement about setting up a business if you're just targeting black people in Montreal. So I'm not going to go back there. I stand by what I said. And my point is, as a business person, you are setting up, the market is not black-centric. It's who is the target and where these people, right? When I say where they live, it could, whether it's B2B, B2C, you try to get this profile of who this clientele is. And when we talk about research, right, Suchit could come and say, okay, I'm doing a research project on this community, and he's collecting the data and stuff. But a lot of times the data that ends up in Statistics Canada and those places, it's a collection of data that people collected, you know? So one of the things that we are trying to do and what we need to do is to educate our black entrepreneurs that they need to collect data. Because a lot of times they have all of these customers, but they're not collecting the information, right? They're saying that they need to go and find this information someplace. You know, I'm doing it right now with the guys in the boot camp. I'm saying, we talking about demographics and the social factors and all of it. I said, you guys, you said you have 100 clients. The assignment is, you come back for homework, you tell me their name, their age group, where they live, maybe their average household income, but you give me a whole profile of these people. And they said, but and then I said, no, that's the homework. And then they start to think about it, and then they come back with a list of how many people. And I'm saying, like, there's no place in the university I could send you to find that. You say you've been doing this. You know, you start to see the profile of who these people are, right? Whether it's B2B, B2C, because some of them are doing stuff with business and that. So you build it. So if you're in business in 10 years, you know what? A database of people, that database that you collected for 10 years worth of work, there's nobody in Suchit doesn't have that anywhere. He wish he has it. He wants to come to you to find out if he could use your database. That's the first thing. The second thing is we're trying from a university standpoint. I could only speak for CSI, where that's what we do. We're trying to interact with not only local entrepreneurs but external too, where we're saying, you guys have certain things that you want, and we want to connect with you. We created the MBA 661, like I said, where we formally going to assist not-for-profits and small entrepreneurs with certain things. We're even trying to get it involved in certain classes right now. Like I can give you a quick example. A professor has had 45 students in her international marketing class. And they're accustomed to just doing stuff by case studies. So they see this case and they come up with all of these great solutions. I went and I spoke to the department about getting them involved in real work, right? I contacted my trade facilitation office. They got me 2 clients. One entrepreneur was in Benin in Africa, she's making confectionery and stuff. Another one was a female entrepreneur in Peru, and she's making pottery and stuff. And her thing is that when she was growing up, all the people who were making ceramics and that, it used to be the women doing it and the men in management. So she created a company where men are doing the work and women are in management. Right? And she that's her thing. And we picked those 2 because they wanted to expand, right? Outside of their country. They have export market potential, but no experience. So we divided up those 45 students in the class. We had 4 groups of 5 groups of 5. And we arranged for them to meet on Zoom. One group working with the lady in Peru, the other one working with the lady in Africa, real live people. They understand what are they trying to do, what the company is all about, and that. And when we pitched the idea to those and these are undergrad students, not even our MBA students, everybody put their hand up. They're so excited. They're doing something meaningful. And all of those groups analyzed the different markets. They analyzed the whole world. And each of them came up with a reason, say, you could export to here, and here's the reason. Right? We had one, and they did, some did Europe, Asia, and all the reasons. The Caribbean, some say just do stuff right in your area, right? And those entrepreneurs got to sit and listen to all of those things. They got all the reports, and now they could go through and pick which one they want and use it. And they got that for free. There wasn't a paid consulting or anything. The students got the benefit of working on something real and something live. They got their credit, and the entrepreneur got it. And we did that out there. We could do it here. We're doing it here. Where you put your hand up, you come and you say, hey, I need some extra research done on A, B, C, D. I've been doing X, Y, and that's what we do. We could be doing more, right? But the seed's been planted, and we're working at it, you know? So don't be afraid to put your hand up and reach out and say, hey, you know, here's some of the work I need done, or talk to Suchit, or if it's more heavy research thing, or if it's something that we could do in real time through the MBA 661, or get it involved in a classroom or something where you get back real, because our thing is practical, implementable solution for you. So we all kind of working together to create this database, because this thing ain't gonna happen. I mean, no disrespect to Martha, but that big survey that they're sending out and all of that stuff, right? It's from people like you who have 10 years worth of data, right? You go and you tell Suchit you have 10 years worth of data that you need to analyze, or he's finding the funding to do it. You're making his work easier. But you can say after 10 years, you come in to ask him, what can he do? Then he says, well, now we have to go and create, you know? And that's all I'm saying. It takes that collective effort, and don't disregard your effort. Don't disregard the stuff that you've done. Because 10 years worth of data is 10 years worth of data, right? If you have it, put it on the table. Let's see how we could analyze it and use it for the greater good.
I'm going to set up a date between Dave and Gerando, so don't worry.
Ouais, disant données, en fait, mon entreprise, ce qu'on fait, on connaît de plus en plus les données. En fait, ce qu'on fait, c'est qu'on développe un réseau d'affichage publicitaire qui permet à ce qu'on puisse avoir les mêmes types de données que les réseaux sociaux, même encore plus convaincants. Les réseaux sociaux comme Facebook, ce qu'ils ont comme données sur toi, c'est savoir où tu habites, des gens, le truc comme ça, mais c'est très, comment dire, intrusif. Nous, les données qu'on va chercher devant les gens qui vont passer devant nos écrans d'affichage publicitaire, c'est à savoir si c'est des hommes, si c'est des femmes qui ont regardé la publicité, combien de temps la personne a regardé la publicité, l'âge approximatif de la personne, et aussi, encore plus, être capable de pousser la bonne publicité au bon profil. Les données, on s'y connaît un peu là-dedans. Comme je disais tantôt, on est dans du B2B. Oui, effectivement, on a 10 ans de données, comment dire, avec les entreprises qu'on a déjà vendu nos produits et ainsi de suite. C'est pas là l'enjeu pour moi en tant que tel. Je comprends ça. J'en ai participé à plein de recherches.
Thank you for your service.
Ben, justement, si je suis là, c'est parce que je comprends l'importance de le faire et non pas... très souvent, en fait, dans ces genres de choses, on prêche beaucoup pour nos paroisses. Et je suis là juste pour approfondir davantage, justement, pour poser cette fameuse question. Comment est-ce que je vais aller chercher 99% qui ne sont pas du B2B business? Je vais chercher les bonnes personnes. C'est ces données-là que je veux savoir. Je veux pas avoir... Les données que j'ai, je sais comment les gérer déjà. Je veux avoir les données que j'ai pas. C'est ça que je veux savoir.
Okay, thanks. Suchit?
We don't have the data. I don't think you can get it. No. So.
J'ai besoin de solutions concrètes. Si on n'a pas le donné, c'est quoi les solutions pour aller chercher ces données? Parce qu'avec mon entreprise, déjà, on est capable d'aller chercher des données. Mais si on n'a pas, comment on fait pour aller chercher? Est-ce que nous, on doit mettre l'argent pour aller le faire? C'est plutôt ça. Désolé, je ne vais vraiment pas prendre toute la place. Hein. Je pense que je vais arrêter tout ça tout de suite. Ouais.
Je pense que c'est un peu ça qui se passe. Sorry. Non, je sais pas si vous parlez en français ou en
Non,
anglais.
comme tu veux.
So I think, je pense que c'est un peu ce qui s'est passé avec le MyTax. I think that's what happens with MyTax, right? Where the community organization puts up, c'est le partenaire communautaire met une partie des fonds et MyTax va venir, je me tais.
Combler les financements.
J'écoute.
Ben, en fait, je veux juste rectifier. MyTax a donné de l'argent pour qu'on puisse faire la recherche ensemble. Mais le travail de travailler avec les communautés pour collecter les données,
ça c'est le vôtre.
Ça c'est le gouvernement qui a donné aux organisations comme Esther et moi-même. Orijin,
ok.
nous a donné pour pouvoir collecter ces données. Donc il y a une partie des données, oui, on commence, mais à l'instar de la conversation, ce que je pourrais dire, on commence à le faire, on commence à gratter la surface. On n'a pas assez d'années dans ce qu'on est en train de faire pour pouvoir dire, OK, on a un bassin de données, on peut faire des projections, puis on n'est pas rendu là. En tout cas, c'est ce que je voulais clarifier.
Yeah.
So going back to the whole data question. So yes, we don't have the data, but as Esther said, we are in the process of starting to collect that data. If you're going B2C, there is a company called Environics Analytics. It's mapped pretty much all of Canada. You put in information about yourself, it's going to give you your persona, the neighborhood you live, what's the average, what's the median income around that neighborhood, etc. So that information exists. My question to you as a member of the community that you belong to is, where is the Environics Analytics for the community? And you are the creator of that data to bring that data for research, for business purposes. You are the one that is the bridge for researchers, for other people to access that data. So if you have 10 years of data on your community, you're sitting on gold. What you need to do is monetize that data. And that's a better business than whatever business you're in at the moment, right? So that's what I'm saying. It's because of this whole notion of we don't have the level of data at the community level. We may have data at, we have the data at the province level, we have data, in the neighborhood level, we have all of that. But we don't have the data about the community. And the data about the community should come from the community. It should not be us going into there and collecting the data, because we will take a long time to establish trust. We will take a long time to establish relationships. Well, you already have the trust. You already have the relationships. So it's up to you to sort of, champion the cause of data, right? And say, well, here's the data. And the second thing, as I said earlier, was data and voice. You want your voice to tell your story about the data. You don't want anybody else to sort of exploit that data for uses that it might not be intended to. And who's the best custodian of that data is the community. And so I think that is the most important part here, because we've heard about Cambridge Analytica and we've heard about Facebook and all of this. So from a responsible innovation and a responsible researcher point of view, this is something I'm very passionate and careful about, is that I don't want to tell the story that I want to tell. I want to tell your story, and I want you to tell the story. I will showcase your story in academics. I can showcase your story in multiple other platforms, but the story is your story told in a way that you want it to be told. And I think that is critical in terms of how we move forward, because this is the way where we can avoid the mistakes of the past, right? And so this is key in terms of understanding how we move forward. And we're in the first step of that process by having this conversation and collecting that data that Martha is collecting. We have data on our side. Dave has it from CSI. So these are the steps that are needed to create those platforms of the future that will ensure that the storytelling as well as the business opportunity creation is done in a much more responsible way than in the past. So I would say that I am, as a researcher, looking to you for the data, right? Because I don't have access, I don't have those relationships and the trust. You have that, and it's now the ball is in your court to sort of build those databases, build those platforms for engagement, and then we can tap into that. I can show you the best analysis that can be done on the data, but unfortunately, I don't have the data. So this is the point that I wanted to convey.
Thank you, Suchit. Lisa.
I have I don't know if it's completely different. I'm really interested in the mental health of Black entrepreneurs. And I'm wondering if you, in your different, you have very different entrepreneurial profiles that you're working with. And I'm wondering if that issue comes up and how.
Okay, before we answer the question, I just want to mention that Dr. Lisa Ndejuru is also working on a research project about Black mental health and Black entrepreneurship within Quebec. So you will be on this panel once you're done with your research, because we want to hear the work that you're working on. Yeah, absolutely. So
yeah, thank you for that question, because I think sometimes we focus on the work, but we don't focus on the mental health toll that it takes. So, we see a lot of isolation within the entrepreneurial community, and then even more so within the Black entrepreneurial community. I think there's a huge lack of resources. There's a lack of therapists available that look like us. We need more Dr. Lisas, just because there's such a demand. Like, I can just speak from Desta. We don't have, the capacity to address the needs of our participants at all, in terms of funding, in terms of just, having therapists available, because there's so few therapists that look like us available, and you guys are very busy. You're overwhelmed, and I think so. Part of the solution is encouraging more of our community to go into this field, to get education within this field, to be able to then go back and help the community, and resources. Like, there's a lot of resources that are needed for our community. I don't think it makes sense to say you're building an entrepreneur and not addressing issues like mental health. And we've seen, things go very badly within our community. We've seen examples of that because of this factor of isolation, because of maybe a cultural stigma that still exists, which is getting better, but there's still a stigma to even talking about it. So yeah, we have a long way to go. I think it's an issue that we need to put a focus on, more of a focus on, and more resources behind.
I would just slightly add, there is a research project that is in the pilot phase right now, and it's funded by the Shift office, where there is the Office of Community Engagement. It's called the Community Care Practitioner Training Program, where it kind of touches on that, Yeah, okay.
This is already
okay, fantastic. Dave, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to tell Dwight from Action that he could be steering some more people into that particular field. Get them out of poli-sci. You need, start identifying some of these areas and getting some of these folk into research and that kind of thing, because that's what you need. That's what Action is all about, right? So we have people in place now. It's to really let the stuff, the resources, those words we like to use, start directing people in the different areas, because I have, in the bootcamp right now, I have people want to set up special care counseling and that. And the research said there's 16,000 special care counselors in Quebec. There's an association, there's this, there's that. 16,000 is a lot of people, right? And we still say it's not enough, right? Because people want people who look like them and all of that stuff. So there's opportunities opportunities there for us to exploit. Like from we've been good at handling some of the other issues. Like before, an issue was, to get people to come to the class, especially, and this affected women mostly. Once the thing was at a certain time, they couldn't come, or they couldn't come all the time because they're the ones more responsible for bringing up the kids. So they said, look, you run the thing from 6 to 9, and then they have to do dinner and that. So what we did is, instead of you doing in person, we're doing it on Zoom. And then so you're home in your house. Because before that, we created programs with Esther where we provided babysitting. Right? So the entrepreneur came, and while they're in class, somebody's babysitting their kids. Attendance went way up, and people were more comfortable and stuff. So we identified things like that, and bringing it on Zoom made it even better. People are there, and they're home, and they organize dinner and stuff. And some people say, listen, give me 5 minutes, I need to put the baby to bed. They put the bed, and they come back, and they're in class. So we're making those kinds of adjustments, right? And that really feeds into people's mental health, because you don't have that stress of having to deal with that. So that's how we've been dealing with it. But from the more therapy and counseling and stuff part of it, the boot camp doesn't lend itself to that. But for the areas that we're able to deal with in terms of rescheduling things and doing more one-on-ones, and it's one of the few programs where homework gets corrected. It's a lot more work for me, but you correct and you develop that rapport back and forth. So you say, well, you missed the thing because you missed the class because you had to do something with your kids or something. It doesn't mean you missed. We'll adjust to that. So you don't have that stress going in that, I couldn't do it because, Mm-hmm. So we've been actively working on those elements, and we're seeing better results. But maybe we need to build in some elements where, Dr. Lisa is going to come in and actually talk to folk about, for some of those others, because that's outside my scope, mm-hmm. and outside of my expertise. Yeah. So maybe that's the other level, to build in a session where we're looking at, and even at the beginning where we're looking at preferences and motivations and stuff like that, is to build in that session. Are you really ready for this? So we could talk about that. We could talk about. I'm always up for new stuff that works, that helps. So I'm looking forward to chatting with you about that.
Dans le cas d'Origine Village, je ne peux pas dire qu'on adresse directement la question de santé mentale des entrepreneurs. Par contre, ce que l'on a fait dans notre premier focus group, on a demandé aux entrepreneurs comment ils aimeraient être desservis, comment les appuyer. Et donc, ce qu'on a fait, on a adapté, basé sur ces données, on a adapté nos services et nos programmes à leur réalité. Donc, jusqu'à maintenant, exemple, pour tout ce qui est programme check-up ou l'accompagnement ou même la formation, on l'adapte pour que ce soit le plus polyvalent possible, parce qu'on peut comprendre que dans la réalité d'un entrepreneur, souvent, il y a beaucoup de rigidité, il n'y a pas nécessairement de la polyvalence. Donc, c'est comme ça qu'on le fait. Et c'est certain, dans nos événements, dans notre programmation, on essaie de le rendre le plus léger possible pour que ce soit un happening pour tout le monde, pour que tout le monde soit heureux d'être présent et de pouvoir échanger ensemble. Donc, c'est comme ça qu'on le facilite. Mais je suis d'accord, on a besoin de plus d'initiatives pour pouvoir adresser la santé mentale chez les entrepreneurs noirs spécifiquement, parce que ça peut être, l'entrepreneuriat peut être synonyme à la solitude. Et si tu n'as pas le bon réseau, ça peut être difficile. Donc voilà.
Merci Esther.
We have another question here. Back here, is that all right?
Yeah, wait, I'm giving you 3 minutes. That's it.
This will be our last question. Thank you.
Oh, did we also have any online comments or questions? Okay, perfect.
Really, this has been amazing, and this is being recorded, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I would like to actually go back and just review some of the insights because there were just so many. But I've
2 minutes.
2.5 minutes, yes.
Dwight is always calling me and just
Really?
you know we're gonna talk after this.
I'm going to try to like squeeze it all together. So there were just so many insights. One thing that I wanted to sort of bridge and ask quickly, I guess, as we wrap up, is the whole idea of training researchers from the community to actually collect more data. We definitely need to do more work around that so that every entrepreneur feels as if they are basically possessing that capability to just do it by default, whatever sector they find themselves in. And we would really love to have your support on that. But then we also need a little bit of patient capital because we're also looking to places like Silicon Valley and whatever, but these places didn't start overnight, right? They didn't get to where they were in, with one pilot project here or there, but it did maybe start with a couple of initiatives, right? So
They had a small loan of $1 million.
hey, yeah. So just to like wrap it up and tie it up, the whole question of are we serving the community when we're launching a business, or are we looking globally and to all communities and all markets? I think we can do both. And what Williamson said was really, really insightful about the fact that we're relational. And when we look at, everybody knows about Black Twitter, right? Like everybody remember Clubhouse?
Yes.
What happened to that? That fell off. But their model was to look for influencers from African American communities, celebrities, and that took off. I mean, the pandemic context shifted, so of course the need for that shifted, but the fact that we are early adopters and we have in our communities, we have this relational aspect, I think it makes us very powerful consumers. We're super consumers. And I think that building a business to leverage that strength while also having the global vision can be a very, very promising combination. And I would love to hear just your perspectives on how we can leverage that. So I don't think it has to be either or. Either you're doing stuff for the Black community or you're doing stuff for the global market. I think we can do both in a way that is very intelligent and unique, to leverage unique return on investment.
Thank you, Dwight.
I think for me, you're setting up a business to satisfy a need in the marketplace, first and foremost. Whether it's a Black need, a pink need, whatever, I don't care. You're satisfying a need, wherever that need is, local, national, international, right? How you helping the community, right, is by when you satisfy that need and you're a Black-owned business, right? You as a Black-owned business, first you get the satisfaction of setting up something that you're proud of and that. And as the word gets out that, you are the owner of this, that gets out into the community to people say, hey, that's one of us that's doing this. But people get it confused. They feel that they have to be doing this thing in the community with this small market and suffering. But that's not the point. The point is satisfy the need where it is and create this thing that's thriving and successful, and then be that example to the community, right? That's what's bringing the community up there, right? That's what it's about. That's the way I see it, okay? Because success, you could define it or redefine it however you want. But a thriving business, you see in the bottom line, but it doesn't mean you're any less empathetic or that, or you can't make certain donations to your community and set a certain example, right? And you say, look, I'm successful and I'm interning. Some of my Black youth could come and intern with me and learn and do, right? But it's finding where the need is, creating that opportunity and say, listen, we are going to go out and satisfy this need, and we are bringing everything under consideration. We're educating ourselves, right, to make sure that we're doing all the things that we need to do. We're building the networks, whether within the community or without, right? We put in, marshalling all the resources to make sure that we're successful, and by us doing that, we send a positive message to our community. We have resources that we could plow back into our community when the time comes, and that way everybody gets lifted up. And that for me is, if we're doing that, then we're on the way. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a balance between uplifting your community and limiting your own self, right? You don't want to fall into that trap. And I could use myself as an example. If I had known Dave, 10 years ago, I opened a yoga studio in Montreal, specifically geared towards the Black community. And it should have been set up as a nonprofit, now knowing what I know and seeing the projects that are out there now. But I tried to make it into a for-profit business. It didn't work. So there are ways to help your community. There are models to do that. And there are ways to really, build a for-profit business that's going to give you the means to help your community even more. So I think people fall into this trap of, or our community will sometimes fall into this trap of, staying true to your community and kind of making that limit us. So yeah, I wish I had known Dave back then. But at the same time, I learned so much from that. And seeing what I'm seeing now happening in these communities, I just came from an event with Black Healing Center over the weekend. Seeing these initiatives happening, being funded, and to me, it's such a beautiful thing to see our community doing these things. So I don't think one excludes the other. I think you just have to know what you're doing and what role you're going to play, and everybody plays their role, and we all help to uplift each other. I think that's really how I see it.
I know the yoga studio didn't work out, but she's opening much more doors now in the community for our youth as the executive director at Esther, right? Because the work she's doing at Esther, it's fantastic. So, the yoga studio, it's another thing, right? But what you're doing at Esther and those doors you open, the impact on our community is so much greater, and and that's what we need. You could go back to the yoga at some point.
I'm wondering about the global, when we're talking about our community, does it have to be our community here in Montreal? Isn't our community?
There's a global Black community.
Our community is global. It's very big. There's many, 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 many of us.
Yeah.
So it's not a small community. Right?
Okay. We don't have a lot of time, so I know everyone wants to say something, and I promise you'll have the time to do so. The speakers are still here. You'll get to exchange with them afterwards. To wrap this up, what I wanted to do was just get, how can I say this? I guess like a closing circle from everyone who has not asked a question. I wanted to ask, what are you taking from this event, and how do you feel about it? We can start with you, Lauriane. Mais tu peux parler en français, bien sûr.
OK. Moi, je repars avec quand même pas mal d'informations. Ça fait pas longtemps que je fais partie du monde de l'entrepreneuriat. Donc, j'ai trouvé ça quand même assez intéressant. Au niveau de la recherche, c'est pas quelque chose auquel j'avais commencé à penser. En fait, c'est quelque chose auquel j'ai commencé à penser récemment. Donc, je pars un peu avec des insights pour pouvoir évoluer vers le mieux.
Thanks. Hannah?
Thank you so much. It was wonderful to hear from all of you. My name's Abby, and I'm one of Suchit's PhD students, so I'm definitely looking for those thesis titles that don't give you a headache, and I'm really appreciating all this advice on how to get involved in community and get data. And of course, Esther's been amazing, and one of the things that Orijin does that I really love is how they bring people together, both in person and online. And so these questions that I'm thinking about, that I'm leaving, of course, with more questions, but I'm really appreciate that. I wanted to get at something like this question of how do we do scaling up versus scaling deep in the community, and then how do we do the grassroots work, like what Esther's talking about, and how do we bring that together? Like, how can we do both grassroots and a profit mindset? So these are the questions that I'm left with. Thank you.
I'm nervous. It was a very interesting talk. I unfortunately came in a little bit later, but the parts I caught were very fascinating. It was very lovely to hear all this stuff. And I usually, in the program I'm doing at the moment, it's more like nonprofit grassroots focused, but there is still some like social enterprise portion, like still a social enterprise lens to some of the classes. So I feel like it's really interesting to get the more entrepreneurship side of things rather than just like, oh, we'll do a nonprofit and get some government money to get things going and service provision and stuff. So it's interesting to see like, oh, how you can make it more like for-profit social entrepreneurship versus like service provision and so on. So it's fun to get these perspectives. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. My name is Gideon. I'm a master's student with the Business Analytics and Technology Management program. I think it's been a very balanced conversation, very stimulating one. You know, as a student, you keep on hearing things from the perspective of academia, but it's nice to get real life discussions. I like especially what Dave said about language and the need, whether whether there's a juxtaposition or it crisscrosses. So I think it's been a stimulating exercise. Thanks.
Hello. Well, I came today. My name is Andrea, and I'm here on the part of the District 3 Innovation Center, which is the Innovation Center of Concordia. And I really came here to listen and to learn. It's not, but also to be able to hopefully continue this conversation. Martha and I already are kind of in the works trying to figure out how we can be working together. But, and Dave knows my boss, Anna, but listening to you all today and just wondering how we can continue this conversation, how D3 can serve as a venue for the community, because not only are our services free and open to anyone looking to start entrepreneurship in Montreal, but also our space is a venue for the entrepreneurship community at large, and it's open to all of you. So if ever you have questions while you're here, please come see me. And yeah, I'm gonna come hunt down some of these these panelists to continue talking. And thank you all so much for teaching us all today, but especially me.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So we are kind of in the last minutes of today's event. I wanted again to thank you all for coming and making the time to participate in this beautiful conversation. I wanted to spotlight again the National Quantitative Survey for those who would like to bring their voice to, the data. And also I wanted to thank all of the panelists that are here today, Dave, Cassandra, Karen, Esther, and Suchit. Thank you so much for being here. I wanted to also thank the interpreter team and Vito, who is in the back, who's provided the devices for the translation, as well as the Fourth Space team. So thank you very much for everyone who's here and online. The last thing that I would say is to enjoy the food that is here and to mingle, make connections so that we can continue these lovely conversations, and I will see you another time. Thank you again.
Merci, c'est ça que je voulais dire. Merci à toi, Martha, pour tout ce que tu fais.
Thank you, Martha. Thank you, everyone. Merci tout le monde d'avoir été de Notre aujourd'hui à l'Espace 4 et d'avoir participé à cette conversation. Thank you for coming in today. Thanks for participating. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll be closing up the Zoom and the live stream now, but just a reminder, the conversation's already available on our YouTube channel if you'd like to revisit or share it. Nous allons maintenant fermer la réunion Zoom et de diffusion directe, mais sachez que la conversation est déjà accessible sur notre chaîne YouTube. Okay? Have a great afternoon. Stick around, actually. Hang out. You don't have to go anywhere. It's raining.